Alright, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney 2. Last time, we found out that Giselle Brett was murdered, and we defended our best friend, I suppose, from being accused of that. But, last case is mostly a kind of a catch-up episode, you know, just to get a refresher on all the threads, and to kind of, I guess, plant the seeds of getting people to think about like where this story is going, which is clearly why is Giselle Brett important? Because clearly she's gonna have some tie-in like in the end, so that's what these games do. And the prevailing thread at the end of the first case that the game really led you to was, why did Susato's father call her back to Japan after knowing what happened in England, basically? So I don't know if it's gonna take 4 cases to get to that point, but we'll see what happens in case 2. Oh wow, I see. There's 20 chapters in this? Oh god. All right, well, let's start.
It was a ghastly tale of a winter's night. One of an invisible killer and a crime perpetrated on the pavement along Briar Road. As the victim lay at death's door, the mystery of just who had stabbed the young lady from behind had been resolved. But no sooner had my friend saved that Eastern Exchange student from his harrowing plight, then in the dim, flickering shadows of gaslight did a second bizarre crime rend the stillness of that very night. I dare say most can still recall the sensational headlines of the day. Haunted apartment of death, the condemned criminal's curse, the dread demon of coal gas.
Coal gas?
Yet, though the great detective had at once discerned the truth upon his arrival at the scene, it only proved to be the overture that announced the rising of the curtain on a most tragic play.
My name is Rinosuke Naruhodo. I'm just a fledgling lawyer, just starting on my journey. 6 months ago, I arrived as a visiting student of law, having made the long voyage across the sea from the Empire of Japan to here, London, England. And on the way, in quite extraordinary circumstances, I made the acquaintance of a world-famous detective. Currently, I reside in the attic of the detective's own lodgings, from where I run my legal consultancy of sorts. I successfully defended a number of clients in Britain's highest court, the Old Bailey. But since a particularly grueling and unforgettable legal battle 4 months ago now, I haven't returned to the courtroom. In truth, I lost my right to return. But that epic trial was just one small part of an epic tale, a tale which now is about to awaken from slumber, thanks to a letter that arrived this morning from my homeland. What a delicious smell wafting up the stairs. It must be nearly time for breakfast. I'd better go down to Mr. Sholmes' suite and say good morning to the great detective and his flatmate. "7:30 a.m. Oops. Ah, Bruno, good. I was just about to call up to you. The bacon's ready. Good morning, Iris. It smells delicious as usual. Before we eat, though, I have some news. I had a surprise this morning that... Shh! Not another word, Mr. Naruhodo. This could be just the abstruse thing for my pre-breakfast stagnation repelling mental stimulation, my dear fellow. Morning to you too, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, I see. So that's it. The truth is as clear to me as day. My faculties of observation have revealed it again. What are you talking about? You, Mr. Naruhodo, you have, this very morning, met with a surprise. Well, is that not the case? Really, my dear fellow, it barely warrants explanation. Firstly, your hair is particularly unkempt, somewhat reminiscent of a bird's nest. Secondly, you have neglected to fasten the third button of your jacket. Clearly, when considered together, these two facts point to you having been flustered this morning. Can I talk now? But of course, of course! Though I don't look for admiration, you understand. My hair always looks like this. It's been this way since I first met you. Oh, it has? And the button was ripped off last night, if you remember? By you. Harley pulled all your button off? Ah, yes, I recall the incident now. It was after supper, was it not? As the evening advanced, I picked up my violin and began to play the wailing notes of a haunting tune. But then, to my utter dismay, the third string snapped. Why did it have to happen? Why? Little wonder then that in my vexation, I grabbed the first button I saw and ripped it from its proper place. Well, I'd like it back now, please. It's troubling me that I can't fasten my jacket. And it's troubling me that you expect me to know where it is. Somewhere thereabouts on the floor, one presumes. Helpful. What matters at the present time, my dear fellow, is simply whether or not my deduction was unerring. But Hurley, Runa said it was when he came in, wasn't it? Didn't he? I had a surprise this morning. Well, that really is a surprise. Yes, this man is the pride of the British Empire, the famous consulting detective, Mr. Sherlock Holmes. This is legally distinct from Sherlock Holmes, so we are clear. There can't be a single person in the world who doesn't know his name. Alright then, enough of this silly conversation. Come and eat this bacon before it gets cold. And I have a new herbal tea for you to try too, my latest special blend. And here we have Iris Wilson, Mr. Sholmes' lodger and companion. A truly exceptional young girl, who's the author of a highly successful serialization here in London. Yes, The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, as published in Ranced magazine. So, Mr. Naruhodo, won't you put us out of our misery? What surprised you this fine morning? Ah, well, I received a letter from Japan. Oh, from Susie, you mean? Was it? Really? That's right. And she had some rather startling news, in fact. Ah, intriguing indeed. You must tell us all about it over breakfast. Oh, yes. What fun! Oh, God. This is the letter that arrived from Japan this morning, by international post. Oh, how lovely. Look at Susie's beautiful writing. I wish I could read it. And how is your judicial assistant faring, may I ask? She's very well, thank you. In fact, according to what she's written, she actually appeared as a lawyer at the Japanese Supreme Court and won a case. Ah, really? Oh, isn't she wonderful? A cut above your good self, my dear fellow. I've won cases too, you know. Apparently, Mr. Natsume appeared in the trial as a witness. Natsume. No, I don't recall that name. Of course you do! We helped the man! Twice! You know, in those two cases that took place on Briar Road 6 months ago. Ah, the mustached twitchy man with the somewhat feline eyes and the mustache. He said mustache twice. He didn't have two mustaches, Hurley. Yes, who could forget those two cases? They made a very deep impression on me. Although I must confess, the details are a little hazy now. A very deep impression they made on you. Clearly. So, what was this startling news penned by Miss Susato? Do you remember the case of the haunted lodgings, Mr. Sholmes? Ah, yes. It's very interesting, you know. I don't feel entirely uncertain that a case of that nature did not occur. He's totally forgotten then. Anyway, in her letter, Miss Susato asked that we read over her case notes again and investigate further. Though it took place half a year ago? For what purpose? Because of something that Mr. Natsume said to her, apparently. He suggested that the real reason why she was called back to Japan so suddenly might have something to do with that case of the haunted lodgings. Oh? On Mr. Natsume's return to Japan, Miss Susato's father questioned him about the case, she says. And something Mr. Natsume said appeared to trouble Professor Mikotoba, prompting him to send that telegram. Oh, that case, yes. It was very strange, wasn't it? Yes. And I had compiled the whole story into a nice, neat manuscript ready for publication, too. But then Hurley here was all funny about it, remember? He was very mean. That story must not be published, you said, very mysteriously as well. Really? I said that? Are you sure? Do you perhaps know something about it as well, Mr. Sholmes? About why Miss Susato was suddenly told 4 months ago that she had to return to Japan? It's been 4 months now since we waved Susie off at Dover. It was such a shock, wasn't it? The way she just suddenly announced that she had to go back to Japan. Indeed it was, due to a telegram she received from her homeland, I believe. That's right, telling her to return urgently. Yes, because her father had passed away. No. It just said that he was suffering from a high fever, the cause of which was unknown. He's not dead. But according to this letter, that news about her father's fever was just a ruse. A ruse? So Susie's daddy lied to her so that she'd make the voyage back home? Why would he do that? I have to admit, I have absolutely no idea. But she believes it's almost certainly related to the case of the haunted lodgings. Summoning her back to Japan so suddenly like that. I wonder what Miss Susato's father is hiding. Hurley, do you know what it's all about? Oh, he got dressed real fast. Ah, well, who can say? What? But you said... Please, I have engagements, my dear fellow. My calendar is surprisingly full today. And a stringent analysis of the matter would be excessive, I feel, even if I were quite at leisure. So, man the fort in my absence, won't you, Iris? I will, Hurley. Don't worry. See you later. He scuttled off rather quickly there. My man is dodging. I think perhaps Professor Mikotoba isn't the only person hiding something here. Soseki-san was involved in 2 cases, but only one of them was forbidden from being published. By of all people, Mr. Sholmes. Aha! I found them at last. Iris, are they... The notes about the case? That's right. Susie and I compiled them together. The case of the haunted lodgings. Do you want to read them, Runo? Absolutely. Thank you, Iris. I have no idea what secrets could still be hiding in the shadows of this case. But perhaps if I read over the notes again, something might come to light. That's the spirit! And so, Iris and I decided to read over the case notes again together. Everything from what happened, to our investigation, and that fierce battle in court that followed. Reliving every detail, I just need to find a clue, and I have all the time in the world. I'm gonna assume he actually does it. Because, of course, I'm no longer allowed to practice law in the courts of Great Britain. It was 6 months ago. A mysterious incident that unfolded on the wintry streets of London. A young woman was found lying on the snowy pavement of Briar Road with a knife in her back. Fortunately, her life was spared, but she was unconscious for several days following the incident. The fog was thick, and nobody saw her attack her, but by a cruel twist of fate, a visiting Japanese student was walking behind her at the time and was duly arrested. That man was Sosaki-san, and the man who effected his arrest was Mr. Holmes. Believing in our compatriot's innocence, Susato-san and I decided to represent Sosaki-san in court. And, after a grueling trial of many twists and turns, we finally managed to prove his innocence. Joyful, joyous, jubilant jubilation was the man's reaction after the trial. But his jubilant jubilation was short-lived. We received a telegram from Mr. Holmes the following morning. The victim of the Briar Road stabbing has regained consciousness. Hurry to Bart's at once. So Susato-san and I summoned a hansom and headed immediately to the hospital. There's a rat. It's a rat. Why is there a rat in the hospital? Maybe it's a pet rat. I don't know. There you are at last. Good morning, Mr. Holmes. I think not. Oh. You're late. What on earth took you so long? Your telegram only arrived at 5 o'clock, Mr. Holmes. And it's a 20-minute ride to the hospital. That's right. And it's 5:30 now. I think we made very good time. The time is utterly irrelevant. The fact is, I have been waiting for what has felt like an eternity. In point of fact, I myself was awoken at 4 this morning by a telegram boy. And feeling it was somewhat unjust that I alone had been roused at such an hour, I sent one to you. Well, thanks for that. Anyway, you're here now, so... The victim is over there. She's only just regained consciousness. You should introduce yourselves, and I shall observe from here. So that's the lady who was found on the snow-covered pavement with a knife in her back. Her name is... Ah yes, here we are. Miss Green. Alright, time to examine everything. This rounded wooden figure isn't the most charming, is it? Ah, I don't think that's a decoration, Mr. Naruhodo. It's an artist's mannequin, I believe, used when practicing sketching the human form in different poses. Really? It's not exactly what you'd call a typical figure for that purpose, though, is it? No, I suppose not. I confess I've never seen one quite so full-figured before. Well, if you want to draw a full-figured person, it's the right tool for the job. Look, there's a photograph in this frame here. Oh yes, it's a picture of a young gentleman. He looks to be about the same age as Miss Green, I would say. Perhaps the young woman's special someone, do you think? My, Mr. Naruhodo. I didn't know you had a sense for matters of the heart. Not in the least. I sincerely said the first thing I thought of. Ah, this looks like the patient's treatment notes. Let's see. Do not feed. Excuse me. What is this place? A zoo? You know, I seem to remember seeing an almost identical sign in our local park. For the pigeons, yes. This is a person. Poor woman. I hope she hasn't read this. That's kind of fucked up. There are lots of bottles in that cabinet, aren't there? Do you think it's safe to keep them like that? Hehe. If you were a patient here, I'd feel sure you took some medicine by mistake when you were half asleep. That is a worry. But at least the cabinet has a lock, even if it's only a flimsy-looking one. Oh, I have no doubt you managed to unlock that somehow while you were half asleep as well. There are limits to even what I can do when I'm half asleep, you know, Miss Susato. That must be a bag of Miss Green's personal belongings. She would have to have been brought directly here after she was found stabbed on the pavement, though. I expect a friend or family member probably brought some things for her. Alright then, let's see what's inside. A change of clothes, no doubt, and... Why really? No, Mr. Naruhodo, you must never scrutinize a young maiden's personal belongings. But the young maiden might have some chocolates, or biscuits, or caramel. Yes, I know what everyone wants. The mouse. Hey, a mouse, Mr. Naruhodo. An enormous mouse. Vermin in a hospital? That doesn't seem the best. But it looks like a very healthy specimen, doesn't it? It's very plump. I'm not sure we can say that's down to the excellence of this facility, if that's what you were thinking. Was it page 2? What? It's like a quarter of the screen. This looks like the treatment notes for whoever's occupying this bed. Let's see. Do not permit to run around the hospital. The patient doesn't seem to be here at the moment, so... He or she is probably running around the hospital then. Oh dear, how worrying. What's worrying is why they haven't discharged the patient yet. There are all sorts of medicines in this cabinet. Look, I'm not sure if it's safe leaving it in the reach of everyone like this. Yes, you're right. I can imagine if you were peckish, you might try a whole bottle or two. Well, at least there seems to be a little lock to secure the cabinet doors. I don't imagine that would stop you if you were hungry. I worry that you'd break the lock. Hunger doesn't turn me into a criminal, you know, Miss Susato. Good morning. Hello. I'm Ryunosuke Naruhodo from the Empire of Japan. Oh no! Well, was it your knife that... Are you the man who... No. I'm a lawyer. And I'm Susato Mikotova. Pleased to meet you. Oh no! Well, was it your knife then? Are you the one? No. I assure you, I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. We heard that you'd regained consciousness and wanted to come give you our best wishes. Best wishes? For me? Thank you. I'm Olive. Olive Green. I'm an artist. Olive Green. Well, no, that's not right, is it? What I mean is, I'm trying to be an artist. Well, what I really mean is, I desperately want to be an artist. But the truth is, I don't have any talent. I know I don't. It's no wonder I was stabbed in the back. I don't think that's related, actually. Gosh, this young woman seems to bend over backwards to put herself down. Seeing as we're here, we should ask her about what happened from her perspective, I suppose. To suddenly be struck in the back by a knife as you were walking along the pavement. What a terrible experience you had, Miss Green. It was so cold that day, and the fog was so thick, I couldn't see a thing. That was 4 days ago now, I think. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I'm afraid you've been comatose all that time. But the case has been solved, hasn't it? While I've been here in the hospital, I mean. Indeed it has, my dear madam. Spectacularly by none other than I, Herlock Sholmes. Do we find out who did it? Yes. It was, the veteran's wife who wasn't she threw like a bunch of stuff out the window and like a knife happened to fall or something like that? I remember that was the plot line for that case. Mr. Sholmes, as you well know, it was Mr. Naruhodo's hard work and course that solved the case. Are you yet to hear what happened, Miss Green? Yes, I'm afraid so. A gentleman from the police force is supposed to be coming to fill me in shortly. Oh, I see. Me coming around seems to have made everyone frantically busy. I'm so sorry. I should never have regained consciousness. It was selfish of me. Oh no! We're all so relieved that you're on the mend, Miss Green. Really we are. With that kind of attitude, maybe her surname should be Blue, not Green. So, you're an artist, are you, Miss Green? Oh no. Oh, I couldn't possibly claim that. I'm a fledgling artist at best. I mean, I'm a student of art, really, at the Thorndike Academy of Fine Arts. Oh my, an Academy of Fine Arts? Great Britain is such a wonderful country. Tell me, Miss Green, do you live hereabouts? Oh no, actually, I don't deserve it, but I have a little flat on Brixton Road. I see. How very interesting. Oh no, is it? Brixton is some 10 stops away on the underground from here, and Thorndike Academy is a mere 3-minute walk from Brixton Town Center. Does that matter, Mr. Sholmes? Perhaps not, but Briar Road is a far less salubrious part of the town by comparison, dwelt in those by those of inferior means, including the maleficent Mr. Mustache. Inferior means? I suppose Soseki-san does fit the bill. It struck me as somewhat out of the ordinary for a young fine arts student to be walking in such a district. That's all. What's this? She suddenly clammed up. Mr. Sholmes, you should be ashamed of yourself, prying into a young maiden's private affairs. Oh dear me, do forgive me. If you don't mind. I'm being discharged shortly, so I need to pack up my things. Oh yes, of course, we won't keep you. Thank you so much, Miss Green. Is there a Mr. Narrowfodder here? Mr. Narrowfodder! Narrowfodder now? Well, if you're looking for Naruhodo the lawyer, that's me, but... Ah, Mr. Narrowfodder, good. This is for you. It's a message from Mr. Saucy Nutsmeg. Mr. Natsume sent a message? To me? But why would a policeman be delivering a message from Mr. Natsume? Exactly. What's going on? What's a Scotland Yard constable doing playing delivery boy at this time in the morning? Ugh, what are you waiting for? Let me see that. Oh. Well, this is most unexpected. Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes? Is something wrong, Mr. Sholmes, he says. Have you not seen this note? No, I haven't. No, how could I have? It would seem that London's criminals have no intention of letting the great detective rest. A new case calls. A case of murder, no less. We must depart at once. Murder? Call a cab. Time is of the essence. But the trouble is, we've yet to read Mr. Natsume's note. I was thinking we'd ought to pay him a visit in his lodgings once we did. That will be entirely convenient. Convenient? What do you mean? It's all here in the note, my dear fellows. The murder we must investigate took place at Mr. Mustache's lodgings. Wait, what? I'll hail a fiacre at once. How many words for, like, transportation vehicles do I have to learn today? It was only yesterday that Soseki-san was in court, and we were dispelling doubts about his innocence. And now, the very next day, there's a murder at the man's own address? He may very well be the unluckiest man alive. Or so it seemed to us at the time. but we were soon to discover it was worse than we thought. I see. What on earth? Oh my, the gentleman is deceased, without question. He's dead. Locum student, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Mr. Natsume. Oh, why? Why is this happening? Why to me? I've only just got out of court. Yesterday, I was finally home after 2 days of misery. And then I wake up the next day to this. No early bird should catch a worm like this. One willful worm without wiggle. I see you're in high spirits again this morning, Mr. Mustache. Nah, not the horrible hairlock Sholmes. Shoo, shove off. Show yourself a door. I never invited you. Mr. Sholmes came here with us. I'm quite sure he'll be able to help you, Mr. Natsume. I am entirely at your disposal, Mr. Mustache. What can I do for you? Here they are, already. The busybodies. Ah, Inspector Gregson. What a pleasant surprise. Pleasant, is it? Gives me heartburn every time I see your face at a crime scene, Sholmes. Ha! I deduce, Inspector, that your heartburn is a result of your excessive consumption of fried food. Good morning, Inspector. This is a crime scene. Don't you go touching anything. Or, good morning to you too, Sunshine. Does this also scroll like a quarter of the screen? That's like less than a quarter of a screen. That's like 20% of the screen. It seems... It's like designed just to hide like something important or something. Anyway. It's time to click on stuff. Oi, I said hands off. You're gonna mess up my crime scene. Oh, no, I just wanted to look. That's all. No chance. I know you're kind. You'll mess it up just by looking at it. Someone's in a bad mood. There's certainly some bad air in here, isn't there? Alright, it sounds like I'd better talk to the inspector first and try to curry some favor. So, Inspector, what was the victim's name? Who was he? Mr. William Shamspeare. He was a lodger here. As you can probably tell, he was an actor. A bit of a dead loss, as it happens. Or just dead. Mr. Shamspeare. It was the landlord, old Mr. Garydeb, and the other lodger, Mr. Natsume, who found him. The fellow didn't rise at his usual hour, so Garydeb got worried and kicked the door down. But doesn't Mr. Garydeb have a bad leg? Ah, yeah, you're right there. It was that jittery Japanese hunchback over there who actually did the kicking. Really? Soseki-san? The victim was pretty hard up, it seemed. Even done some time inside for petty crimes. He had no money, no place to go, and no friends. His only acquaintances were the people in this house. Miserable life and a miserable end to it. So, what exactly is Mr. Natsume still doing here? He's not involved in the investigation, so shouldn't you have sent him away from the crime scene? Well, I'm not saying it's because the fellow looks odd or anything, or that he acts suspicious, but I thought it'd be prudent to take a statement from the cohabiter. You nearly said culprit there, didn't you? Oh dear. Mr. Natsume appears to be under suspicion again. It certainly seems that way. He just does come across as such an odd fellow, doesn't he? Poor man. How unfortunate. Anyway, I can't say much until the coroner gets here. But I don't think the fellow's been a goner that long. The body's still warm. Even if the inspector would allow it, I don't think I could bring myself to touch a dead body. What a terrible thing that had happened. It's only been 3 days since I was arrested for the incident on the pavement outside. And then, having finally regained my freedom, it starts happening all over again. Endless existence of excruciating experiences. So the victim lived here on the ground floor, and your room is just one story up, isn't it? Yes, that's right. In a way, we were neighbors, I suppose. So did you know the victim? Were you friends? What's the matter with Soseki-san now? It was an innocent enough question, wasn't it? Why does he seem so shaken by it? Well, I suppose he wasn't a complete stranger, but did he ever invite me to his room? Never. On my honor, I swear it. What an extreme reaction. You're probably wishing you'd never asked now, aren't you, Mr. Naruto? When we found him here, I felt wretched, which is why I sent word asking you to come. Through that inspector over there. What? You doing okay there, Sholmes? Mr. Sholmes, what are you doing? Ha! You need only observe to know it, my dear fellow. Investigating, naturally. There's nothing natural about that pose. Mr. Sholmes, have you made some miraculous discovery? Patience, my dear madame. Patience. We've not been here in this room 5 minutes. So far, all I've managed to deduce is what actually happened. My goodness. But isn't that everything we need to know, Mr. Sholmes? Now that you propose the idea, I believe one could, indeed, see it that way. At the present time, I have managed to draw 2 incontrovertible conclusions. The first is that there was a physical struggle here last night in which the victim fought for his life. Mr. Natsume, what's wrong? Is something that Mr. Sholmes said significant somehow? No, don't mind me. Forget I was here. And my second conclusion is that there was a poison lingering in the air here last night that passed the victim's lips. Nonsense! Alright, Mr. Natsume. Why are you reacting so extremely to Mr. Holmes' deductions? No, please. Pretend I'm not here. Invisible, ineffable, inscrutable, insignificant. Impossible to ignore. You must tell us everything, Mr. Sholmes. Spare no detail. But of course, let the theatrical tragedy before us be unraveled by my great deductions, presented for your pleasure in 2 acts. We've heard some truly astounding great deductions from Mr. Sholmes in the past. No doubt this will be no exception. What miracles will unfold before our eyes this time? So, my dear fellows, for your delight and wonder, let the curtain rise and the hot jams play. For Mr. Sherlock Sholmes, Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Cause of death. Careful observation of the victim reveals to us the events that transpired in this disconsolate room last night. Foam at the mouth of the deceased clearly indicates the use of poison. Next to the victim, we notice a large dining plate, which contains, you will observe, 1/2 of a sizable bar of soap. Meaningful? Indubitably. Why is this soap set so purposely upon the dish? Like the victim's last supper, in fact. Yes. Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The fork reveals the answer. It appears that the young man's appetite was his undoing. Taking up arms in the form of his cutlery, the victim engaged in a deadly battle for his life. Yet the struggle against his hunger was in vain, for in the end, he couldn't resist devouring the slippery feast. But London's foul soap is besmirched by the foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by the poison that tainted the contents of the plate. The soap and the lather about the young man's mouth are too perfectly matched to ignore. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to excessive ingestion of foul soap. Though personally, I have a greater interest in the taste of foul candle wax, of course. Kids, don't eat soap. I mean, that's not what happened, but don't eat soap. The cause of death identified, we proceed to Act 2, where we ponder the next question. Was this suicide or murder? The audience will recall that the death occurred during the victim's Last Supper. Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup suggests the answer. To draw a conclusion on such a meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. A careful criminal could have absconded with his own cup to cover his tracks. Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Indeed, what reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. Though forced open now, at the time of the incident, this door was locked. And the sole key was in the victim's pocket. In other words, when the victim consumed the poison, he must have been alone. Alone with his inferior soap, from whence wafted an inferior scent. And with that acrid aroma lingering in the air, the victim met his end in tragic solitude. We can take comfort only in the fact that his soul was well cleansed on its way to the hereafter. Conclusion: no possible perpetrator present. Alright, man. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' great deduction. There's just one thing, Mr. Sholmes. You are disposed to identifying just one thing, aren't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Pray, what concerns you? Well, no matter how hungry he was, do you really think the man would have eaten soap? It is quite apparent that this man had barely a penny to his name. It is a curious thing, but to one so destitute, soap could suddenly appear quite irresistibly appetizing. How extraordinary. In truth, I have tried a little soap myself in the past. Of course you have. You've eaten it, you mean? My dear fellow, it was some time ago now. My postulation that it was cleansed my gut. And did it? As I writhed in agony on the floor and spilled the contents of my stomach. Yes, I believe it did. The experience taught me a valuable lesson. Soap is quite poisonous. It has an unpleasant taste and leads to great discomfort. In summary, I cannot recommend it. Believe me, I wouldn't eat it even if you did. There's something that troubles me as well, actually. Oh? What's that? It's Mr. Natsume. Ah! I couldn't help noticing him shuddering and quivering out of the corner of my eye. Almost as if Mr. Sholmes' deductions touched a nerve somehow. Nonsense! Well, that clenched teeth episode didn't last. I think, judging by Mr. Natsume's reaction, the great detective's deductions may need some gentle corrections in order to reach the actual truth. Yes, Mr. Sholmes' observations and deductions are sometimes a little too sharp. He has a tendency to hit the nail on the side of the head and drive it in at an obtuse angle. When he does that, it falls to us to straighten things out. Alright then, let's see what we can do. Yes, we must pick up the key words in Mr. Sholmes' quite brilliant deductions, and discreetly exchange them for something that makes a little more sense. If we can do that, I'm sure we'll arrive at what Mr. Sholmes meant to say in the first place. In that case, are you ready for the second performance of the day? Once again, my dear fellows, for your continued delight and wonder, let the curtain rise for Herlock Sholmes' Logic and Reasoning Spectacular, Act 1. Course correction. Okay. Foam at the mouth of the deceased. Poison. Bar soap. Well, you can't deny that the fork implies that the man was eating something, or about to eat something. Yes, that's true. If I were to decide to eat some soap, I should prefer to use a fork than to attempt it with chopsticks. And of course, only half of the bar of soap was left on the plate. But might not there be some other explanation? Something material that proves whether or not the man really ate some soap. Okay, left click to drag. Okay. Oh, there's a bar of soap right there. Oh, what? Let's invest the. Look, there's more soap on the floor here. Mr. Shamsphere must have really loved this stuff. Let's not jump to conclusions, Mr. Naruhodo. Look closely at this soap. Do you see that it would fit together perfectly with the half bar on the table? What the? How can that be? I think that they are two halves of the same bar that broke apart. Do you think he was drinking tea with this soap? The cup's empty, so there's no way of knowing. Ah, how about this for an idea? Perhaps the cup was full of water, and he was dissolving soap in it so he could gulp as much down as possible. Brother, why? Please remember that he may not actually have been the soap lover he's been made out to be. I suppose you'd eat soap with a fork, would you? Would you? I don't think it's a question of which implement you'd use. You shouldn't eat soap full stop. But then why? Why doesn't a man have a fork in his hand? Oh dear. I understand your frustration, Mr. Naruhodo. Please don't take it out on me. The point is, if we decide the man used his fork to eat the soap, it wouldn't be changing Mr. Sholmes' deduction. So we really ought to consider some other clues. Trying to see if there's some more lore. I guess I should check this. Controls are a little touchy. Alright, whatever.
Take that!
Could it be that the man was about to eat it? Of course. The other piece of soap reveals the answer. It being the other half of the soap on the table. In short, the victim was not eating soap at all. But it's obvious, really. For no depths of hunger could drive any man to attempt to eat soap. Look at the side eye. The side eye, right? He's like, dude. Even I, with my unquenchable thirst for practical knowledge, took only a single bite. But that begs the question of how the man was poisoned, because there's no sign of any food on the table. An excellent observation, Mr. Naruhodo. And one that furnishes us with the answer that we seek. For London's foul soap is dispersed by its foul poison. Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the contents of the plate. Mr. Sholmes is still pushing the soap argument then. Perhaps he's suggesting that the man licked the soap rather than ate it. If soap in London is that poisonous, I don't think I want to be washing my hands with it. But there are no signs of any food in this room at all. Of course, Food isn't the only thing that passes people's lips, is it? Is it the same text? Yes. A Western vessel for the serving of infusions of dried tea leaves. It's a teacup, Mr. Naruhodo, as you all know. Stop putting on airs. And it's empty. Nah. So we've already established that the victim wasn't eating soap when he died. However, there's significant evidence to suggest that he was drinking tea. My thoughts exactly. Minarbun.
Take that!
Yes, the victim's life was claimed by poison that tainted the teacup. Indeed, cups have been the vessel of choice for practicing poisoners over the century. And it would appear that this victim drank every last drop. There's no sign of food anywhere in the room. Which leads us to the immutable conclusion. The cause of death was clearly intoxication due to the ingestion of poison contained in this teacup. Alright, Act 2. Suicide or murder? Did the man dine and die alone? This single teacup. That's the answer. The Western vessel for infused hot drinks again. It's already featured heavily in our deduction so far. Yes, we can imagine that shortly before his death, Mr. Shamspeare was having a drink of tea. There would be nothing remarkable about that. But what troubles me is Mr. Natsume's reaction when he heard Mr. Sholmes suggest it. There's more to this deduction than it seems. We must closely examine the scene of the crime again for more clues. Ah. How? Come on, man. Come on. You can't do that. You can't just hide the other cup. It's another Western vessel for infused. It's a teacup. And it too is empty. Given that he's actually holding this one in his hand, we can assume that this is the cup from which Mr. Shamspeare was actually drinking. But if that's the case, this changes everything. Everything we've deduced up to now is turned on its head. I have a bad feeling about this. I almost don't want to say it. Yes, I know exactly how you feel.
Take that!
Did the man dine and die alone? This other teacup suggests the answer. Yes, there were 2 teacups in this room all along. Ah! In other words, this is a strong indication that at the victim's Last Supper, there was a guest present. At the very least, we can not say now with certainty that somebody else was here in this room last night, taking tea with the victim. Whoa, what are you talking about? Utterly, unbelievably, unjustly, unreasonable. To draw a conclusion on such meager evidence would be foolish, however, certainly. In which case, what more can we deduce about this possible guest at the table? Well, allow me to lift the veil of doubt, my dear fellow. Do you mean to say you know exactly who was in... You know who exactly was in this room at the time of the victim's death? Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the broken lock. I'm not sure I like where this deduction is going now. I'm afraid it's too late to go back to the halcyon days of eating too much soap. But the identity of the guest who was here last night when the victim passed away is something I have a very bad feeling about. Well, you could try to ignore your feelings, We cannot ignore the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I suppose not. Time to look around again. Look, there's a tiny door there. At first glance, it seems that the only things in this room are the makeshift stage and the costumes. I overlooked these 3 books initially. I wonder what they are. Let's see. The titles read The Picture of Monsieur Lecoq, Canterbury Yearnings, and A Meal for Gabriel. Wait, I'm sure I've heard those titles before. It could just be an incredible coincidence, but they're the exact same 3 books that Mr. Natsume purchased the other day. What? Yes, on the day of the unfortunate incident when Miss Green was stabbed, Soseki-san had just went to the bookshop and bought them. That's right. And now those 3 titles are here in the room with the victim. Yet Mr. Natsume claims to have never been here before. What does this mean, do you think? I really don't know what to make of it. It's empty. Empty of liquid, full of air. That makes you think, doesn't it? It makes me think that you're full of hot air. We should be thinking about who else was in the room at the time. Bother. Susato-san's quip and response was cleverer than my original riddle.
Take that!
Indeed. What reveals the answer, of course, is the pile of familiar books. Quite so. It's no mere coincidence that these 3 titles are here in this room. It's the link to the truth. Ah! Mr. Natsume, you purchased these books 4 days ago at a secondhand bookshop. But that's just a coincidence. In that case, you will be able to bring the same 3 titles from your own room, will you not? This very moment. No, never, non-negotiable. If you can't bring your own copies here, it proves that these 3 books are in fact yours. Having purchased the books 4 days ago and returned to your lodgings, you were arrested the very next day. So you could conceivably have brought the books here that evening, but you never mentioned that. In other words, you could have only brought these 3 books here to the victim's room. Last night, having returned to your lodgings after the trial concluded at the Old Bailey. In short, there is only one possible conclusion. The victim died here in his room last night as a result of poisoning. And in that same night, the victim had a visitor. And that visitor was you, Mr. Soseki Natsume. Thus concludes the final act of Herlock Sholmes' Great Deduction. Not again, not again, not again. Not again! Well then, Mr. Natsume. It would appear that you're gonna have to accompany me down to the yard. Again. But wait! Hold your horses. Yes? Door, key, lock. Entry, exit, entirely impossible. He's so flustered he's being even stranger than normal. What? You think that's an alibi? You could have just made a copy. What? You live in the same building after all. You would have had plenty of opportunity, I'm sure. But... Misery me! Sorry, sir. You'll get your chance to give your side of the story later. The facts speak for themselves, Mr. Mustache. Arrgh, you horrible hair-like shomes. He really has found himself an arch rival now, hasn't he? Come on now, no dilly-dallying. Outside, there's a carriage waiting. Welcome to Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. I never imagined I'd be in this position again, but... You have to help me. Please, please. I'm innocent. Alright, I understand. We'll come to your cell later and talk about it. And one more thing. Oh, yes? My poor little kitty cat. Please give him his breakfast for me. And so, his evil curse still apparently unbroken. Soseki-san found himself once again a prime suspect in a case of murder. Thanks to the incriminating deduction of the great object detective. My dear fellow, that honor belongs to you. Well, at least that means Inspector Gregson is no longer here. We can examine the crime scene in more detail now. Yes, that's right. Ah, and of course. What? Have you forgotten what the inspector mentioned before? It was the landlord, Mr. Garydab, who discovered Mr. Shamsphere. Ah, Mr. John Garydab, yes. I expect we can find him in his sitting room on the top floor as usual. Right. We must remember to go and talk to him later, then. Alright, I'll go look at everything. And here we have another disproportionately large machine. This looks like a meter of some kind. Ah, this is a gas meter, I think. It seems that in this district, residents pay for gas as they use it with coins. Ah, I see. Yes, now that you pointed it out, I can see that there's a slot here that looks like it would take a coin. So you mean if you put a coin in here... That's right. That would buy you about 2 hours of gas for lights and heating. So if you were a poor person with no money, you'd have to sleep in the freezing cold? Yes. Or if you were a scatterbrain with no change because you forgot to exchange your money at the bank. Thank goodness there's no meter at our office. This is a gas wall light, isn't it? It must be connected to a gas pipe in the wall. Gas lights, a gas stove. London really is a city of gas. But now that I think about it, Mr. and Mrs. Garydab had an open fire on the top floor, didn't they? Oh yes, you're right. I don't recall seeing a gas stove up there. Well, I much prefer a real fire anyway. It's so much cozier. As we've seen from the outside, the window is completely bricked up. A vestige of the former window tax that the Britons had to pay. What strange things they used to tax in Great Britain. I mean, making people pay for the number of windows they had on property? It's extraordinary. It's heartbreaking to think of the poor having to block up their windows just to avoid an unaffordable tax. Oh, what is it, Miss Susato? If you look closely, a number of the bricks are loose. Bars of soap. Oh yes, it looks like as though an amateur has broken out a few of them just here. Was it Mr. Shamsphere who did this, I wonder? Being the lodger renting this room. Ah, look at this, Mr. Naruhodo. On the outside, there's a little ledge. And there's something on it. What, outside? It's so cold outside. You can feel it through the gap. It did snow all last night. It would be cold. But more importantly, what is it on the ledge out there? What are those snow-covered lumps? It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I have no idea. But the pair of them look rather charming like that. Still, that's very strange, isn't it? Bars of soap lined up outside the window. I think perhaps we should take one. There are two after all. Oh dear. I suppose we could. Oh, what's this? Look here at this soap. Ah. Do you see in the middle there? There's a patch that's a different color. It's sort of transparent, but some sort of fancy design, I suppose. Only in Great Britain. It looks like the Hinamaru flag of Japan, doesn't it? How wonderful. It's probably a very expensive brand. Expensive? Then what's it doing in this ramshackle old room? We got soap, boys. This part is a different color. It's an exquisite design, isn't it? Trust the British to turn a boring bar of soap into something special. I quite like it. It reminds me of the Hinamaru design of the Japanese flag. I expect this is a rather expensive soap. That doesn't seem likely, given who it belongs to. I don't get any more lore? Okay. See, I also got a map. Alright. Can't wait to use this like 10 times. Book receipt. And we got badge. I suppose I will investigate the badge. I'm right in thinking that these scales are a symbol of the defense and law, aren't they? They're supposed to symbolize treating everything equally and fairly. That's why they're always in the middle, balanced, equal measures on both sides. Recently though, whenever I see a set of scales, I can only think of the enormous scales of justice. That's entirely understandable. They are such a powerful symbol in the courtroom, aren't they? The thing about the scales of justice is, they're always leaning one way or the other. They're only ever in balance, right at the start. It must be something peculiar to the British. I'm afraid I can't shed any light on it, Mr. Naruto. It is very high resolution. Ah. It's very fine embroidery here that shows the name of the armband's owner. In this case, Kazuma Asogi. So I'm always carrying my best friend's hopes and dreams with me on my right arm, just here. All the time. To be honest, it's something that weighs very heavily on me. Oh, I didn't realize it was such a burden, Mr. Naruto. Yes, I think that's why my right shoulder aches so much. Are you sure that's not to do with you reading in bed or the like? Alright, let's go back to investigating. God, there's too much stuff to click on. Look at these extravagant bright costumes. Somehow they look out of place in this room, with its grim, shady goings on. This one looks like a king's attire. A king? I've always dreamt of being a king. Oh, I think you'd be more suited to a feudal lord, a daimyo or such like. With such a Cron Mage top knot? Every Japanese man wishes he had a Cron Mage? Oh, you look wonderful with one, and you already have the sword. Can you imagine what would happen if I walked around the streets of London with a Chan Mage and a sword? Or I guess it would be Japanese like Chan Mage? I don't know. There's not much on these shelves, is there? Just this wine glass and bottle. And both of them are cracked. Yes, not much use, are they? What's the matter? Oh, I was just reminded of the Reaper, that's all. Prosecutor Lord Van Zeeks? Yes, he's so reckless with his wine glasses. I was thinking it's a waste and that he should donate some to the needy. You can suggest the next time we meet. Oh, the poor man. So young to die. Do you suppose it was a very painful death, being poisoned as he was? I don't know. All we can do now is hope that he'll be reborn to a better life. Yes, I suppose you're right. I wonder. Do you think that putting our hands together in a Japanese prayer will help a British soul? Sorry? I made sure I had a reference at the ready for such an occasion as this, actually. This book is entitled The Beginner's Guide to Praying for the Departed, the British way. I'll just reread it now. One moment. There's quite a spine on that book, isn't there? Ah, one of the teacups that Mr. Shamsphere and his guest drank from last night. But don't go drinking from them, Mr. Naruhodo. There's bitter poison inside. I'm not planning on drinking any, don't worry. Anyway, the cups are both empty. That's true. So, one was Mr. Shamsphere's, and the other must be the cup that Mr. Natsume was drinking from. But Soseki-san wasn't poisoned, of course. Perhaps we should take these so that we can examine them in more detail later. Wow, we're just stealing all the evidence, huh? Sorry, borrowing. Alright, seem to be good on this side. Let's see what's over here. This is some sort of makeshift stage, I think, isn't it? Where does the audience sit, though? For the nightly Shakespeare performances. Actors aspiring to the great stage must practice their art, Mr. Naruhodo, with or without an audience. In fact, on a related note, perhaps you should set up a mock bench for the defense in your office. What? Then you could practice your art every single day. I'll think about it, if you promise to don a beard and play the role of the judge. Well, if that would help you achieve your goal, this I have to see. Let's get out of here. Oh God. There are places to go. Here we are again, the eccentric landlord's eccentric top floor abode. We're here because Mr. Gary Dev's the one who discovered the incident this morning. Don't forget. Ah, you chaps, eh? Yes, good morning, sir. Thank you for your cooperation in court yesterday. It was quite a trial. As much for Mr. Gary Dev as anyone, really. Came straight back here after all that business at the Bailey yesterday. Didn't expect to wake up to more bally nonsense this morning. I wonder if you wouldn't mind telling us exactly what happened, Mr. Gary Deb. Yes, I suppose you'd like to know all about that dead loss of an actor chap in the ground floor room. Those were exactly Inspector Gregson's words, weren't they? It must have been a real shock for you this morning. I hear that you discovered what had happened. Ah, well, that hopeless actor chap rises at 5 o'clock sharp every morning without fail. But at 5:30 this morning, he still hadn't lit the gas. So I went down and knocked on his door, but no bally answer. And that's when you broke into his room by kicking down the door? Well, I called on that rum-rooking Japanese chap to do the grunt work, of course. Wasn't it a little premature to kick the door down? The man could have just overslept by half an hour. That's very true, Mr. Naruhodo. If 30 minutes oversleeping warranted such behavior, I'd have to kick your door down every morning. Well, you know, better to be safe than sorry than all that. Is it just me, or is he avoiding our gaze all of a sudden now? Except that it was a sorry situation indeed that you found on the far side of the door. The victim's name is Mr. Shamsphere, I believe. Is that right? Yes, William Shamsphere. Took the ground floor room 3 months ago now. And how would you describe him? In a word, destitute. Destitute? Well, let's face it, the only redeeming feature of that room is the cheap rent. Anyone wanting to live in a place like that is either broke or has a bally screw loose. So hard to choose which category Soseki-san would fall into. Mr. Naruhodo, that's a little rude. He was doing research as well. Research? Into what? Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare. Read a few plays of the old bard myself, you know. Romeo and Hamlet and all that. Yes, William Shakespeare is England's most highly regarded classical playwright and author. He's known as Sao in Japanese, as you know, and many of his works have already been translated. It seems incredible that Shakespeare was shortened to Sao, though. Someone was too heavy-handed there. There were a lot of costumes in the victim's room, actually, weren't there? Of course, Mr. Natsume is a scholar of English literature as well. I imagine he and Mr. Shamsphere would have had much in common. Shakespeare interpretation disagreement leads to shocking murder. Let's hope it's not that. Mr. Naruhodo, really? How rude! After Mr. Natsume's trial yesterday, you came straight back here, I believe, didn't you? Did you notice anything strange between then and this morning? Well, now, must have been about 6 in the evening by the time I got home. Snow was coming down rather heavily, as I remember, and it was completely dark already. That failed actor chap was out at the time. Mr. Gary Deb noticed there was no light from his room or something, I suppose. Couldn't summon the energy for anything much, so I just sat in front of the fire up here. It was after 8 before Shamsphere got back. And the chat was up past 1 in the morning, I'll have you know. Suppose he met his end sometime after that. I was asleep by then, so I'm rather in the dark there. Well, thank you. That was very illuminating. Is everything alright, Miss Usato? Well, I was just thinking it's a little strange, that's all. Mr. Gary Deb, you were up here in your room all evening, if I've understood correctly. Not a big fan of stairs. Not with this blasted leg. Then, how is it that you seem to know? The precise movement of your tenant on the ground floor, I mean. Ah! That's a very good point. I can't imagine that you could hear noises from the ground floor all the way up here. Does this old man like to spy on his tenants? Is that it? I say, I know what you're thinking, and it's a bally outrage. I'm ex-military, don't you know? I don't go around spying on my tenants. Why would I? Then how did you know, Mr. Gary Deb? It's the gas, woman. The gas tells me everything. The gas? What on earth do you mean, sir? How can the gas tell you anything, let alone everything? Well, as you're probably aware, the gas is supplied to the building by pipes. Yes, I'd more or less worked that out. Every room in the building is connected by a single pipe to the gas main outside. And the gas company supplies gas to properties via the main. Yes, I understand that too. Let me see if I can explain. Let's say I was to light the gas lamps up here. What do you suppose would happen? Well, obviously the room would get brighter. Exactly. But at the same time, the lights in all the other rooms of the house would dim for a moment. What? They dim? Why? Perhaps it's because when you light a gas lamp, it briefly uses more gas than usual, and that reduces the amount of gas in the pipe for the other lamps that are connected to it. That might explain why the other lamps dim momentarily. Mightn't it? Yes, of course. Because everything's connected to the single supply pipe. Is that supposed to happen though? It sounds rather undesirable. Jolly good point. The fact is, the gas company's pipes in these parts are pretty hopeless, long worn out, and barely got any gas in them to start with. Opposites also true, of course. Extinguish the lamps up here, and they glow brighter in the rest of the house. Ah, right, I see. So by watching the flickering of the lamps in one room, you can determine what's happening elsewhere. You've got it. Oh, of course. Because when people come back home in the evening, and before they go to sleep at night, what they're guaranteed to do is either light or put out their lights and fires. Clever. In point of fact, the room on the ground floor and the room above it use slightly different amounts of gas. By watching the lights in here closely, I can work out almost exactly what's going on in the whole house. Gosh, that's fascinating, Mr. Gary Dev. Absolutely fascinating. Oh, well, nothing to it, really. And I can't really see that it's going to help us with this case either. What I'd like to know is why Mr. Gary Dev is so interested in what his tenants are up to in the first place. I feel like there's more to it than idle curiosity. There's a good view over that wintry east end from up there. It's an impressively great scene. There's really nothing comparable in Japan. Down below, Briar Road, partly blanketed in snow. And the pavement where poor Miss Green was struck in the back by that knife. Thinking about it, this is the only room in the building that actually has a window to the outside world. Sometimes, Great Britain really does seem like a strange land, doesn't it? I suppose all foreign culture seems strange at first. Imagine how an Englishman would feel arriving in Japan and seeing people with a chonmage and popknot. Well, that's a good point. I was trying to click on the scroll button here. I click on the window. Now, this is all from that case. That's an impressive collection of cakes in that fancy silver cake stand over there. I feel sure it was full of cakes when we first investigated here as well. Yes, quite right. Haven't touched it since. Haven't done much at all, really, since it all happened. Time's rather stood still for me, you know. Oh. Time has stood still? Well, that's an interesting phrase. I might be able to use that excuse when I'm next supposed to be tidying the office. You could just tidy up, Mr. Naruhodo. These shelves look like they've been completely torn apart by a wild beast. Reminds me of the Battle of Maiwan, don't you know? The experiences of a seasoned veteran. Enemy had us surrounded on all sides. We really thought we were done for, the whole ballet company. We were taking a real pounding from their cannons, so all we could do was run for our lives. Oh. I thought that story was going in a different direction, actually. Well, the whole experience taught me one thing, I can tell you. When you're done for, you're really done for. Ugh. That's not a lawyer who often finds himself under fire wants to hear. We know what that screen is hiding now. The aftermath of the fiery altercation the other day. Don't suppose I'll be able to clear that mess up for some time now. Oh dear. This supposed to be a very difficult situation for you. I'll say. People talk about twists of fate and whatnot. But this is a twist and a half. A rotten straw all around. He's clearly struggling with everything that's happened. Good to see Mr. Gary Dev's Medal of Honor still proudly displayed on the wall. The inscription reads, "For distinguished participation," if you remember. Yes, I remember, because I remember thinking even I might stand a chance of picking up honors like that. Wouldn't know what to look at me now, perhaps, but I had my devil-may-care days, you know. Devil-may-care? What did you get up to? Well, all in the past now, of course, and best left there. Best not. I want to know now. That's your military uniform, isn't it, Mr. Garydeb? Well, ceremonial garb, yes. Been hanging on the wall ever since my retirement bash. Not in active service now, you know. Doesn't mean much to me anymore. You could have the old thing if you wanted it. Well, it might suit Lord Van Zeeks, perhaps. An overly ostentatious outfit like this could be just what he needs. Very tactful, Miss Susato. Very tactful indeed. Oh, a copy of Vance magazine. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes is being read all over London. Isn't it wonderful? Naturally, one asks oneself if such a singular detective could really exist. But, having met the chap, it's undeniable. He is most certainly singular. Singularly dangerous. That's genuine public opinion for you, Miss Susato. Perhaps it should be reflected in the stories? Make no mistake, Mr. Naruhodo. I intend to snuff out the sort of public opinion we just heard, personally. I'm starting to see where Mr. Sholmes' untainted reputation comes from now. There's a single apron drying on that enormous cannon-shaped clothes horse. Look. No, Mr. Naruhodo. That's a real cannon. I knew that. I was just testing you. Piece of history, that is. Seen plenty of action on the battlefield, I can tell you. Now, the old girl and I are just enjoying the peace and quiet of retirement together. And of course, she'd come in handy if the enemy decided to launch an attack again. Is there a war going on that I don't know about? Alright, I'm getting out of here. Let's see. Well, let's see if I need to present anything now. Teacups? Probably not. Alright, you wanna show you this? He don't care. I know you want to see the armband. I'm so lazy. You don't care about the armband. I guess I might as well be thorough and just show everything. Can you just imagine, like, going up to everyone you talk to, just like showing everything you have? Hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. And I'm like, please stop. Okay. Briar roads make sense. Boom, scroll wheel works. So I'll do Briar Road, then we'll do prison, talk to Natsume. I don't know what we'll find here, honestly. Probably nothing. I will investigate the snowman. Why has somebody built this snowman on some sort of pedestal, do you think? That's not a pedestal, Mr. Naruhodo. That's part of the snowman's body. Really? But it already has a perfectly good body. Well, it's true that British snowmen are usually made with 2 balls of snow. Perhaps this is a foreigner. And now we're looking at him as if he's strange. Poor man, I know how he feels. If anything, it's Japanese and British 2-ball snowmen that are the strange ones, isn't it? After all, real people do have 3 sections: head, torso, and legs. Do you ever think that perhaps you think about things too much? Oh wait, there's the soap. With the exception of the top floor, where Mr. and Mrs. Garydale live, all the windows are bricked up. Yes, that's because of an old window tax that was charged on the number of windows a property had. In order to pay Less tax, the poor members of society filled in many of their windows. The tax has since been abolished, hasn't it? So the windows could have all been opened up again, surely. Unfortunately, it would appear that the residents of this district can't afford to pay to have the work done. Yes, that is a sad state of affairs. Especially for people like poor Mr. Natsume, who have to live all cooped up in the windowless room. I suppose that's the price you pay for living in very cheap accommodation. It all seems rather pointless when you put it like that. Alright, interesting. Don't do the bike. I'll do the bike. There always seems to be a bicycle outside the Garrydale residence. I read that bicycles are extremely popular all over Great Britain at the moment, actually. In fact. That one seems very warped, though. Especially the front wheel. Is that to make it more of a challenge to ride, do you think? No, I'm afraid that may be a result of the rider's incompetence. But the front wheel will be so badly warped, I'm afraid the rider may have been similarly affected. Then, there's a good chance Mr. Natsume has been practicing on this bicycle, I think. Oh dear, I fear you may be right. The Garrydale household and Mr. Natsume's lodging are in a prominent position there in the corner. Sometimes when I look at the building, I can't help feeling that it's at a bit of a slant. It does rather look as though it would collapse in even the smallest earthquake, doesn't it? And isn't it supposed to be haunted as well? I think I might have a hunch as to why Soseki-san has such a hunched back. Alright, let's go talk to Natsume. Oh. I see. It seems to be the questioning for Miss Natsume, okay. Can I go here? We need to spend a little more time investigating here. Alright, you got it. Alright, let's go look for the thing I missed. We're doing it. We're scanning. Scanning for the pixel. Might even be a pixel. Might be something to do later. Oh, autosave. All right. Less. Well, let's see. We should leave her for a while. We could go back to Sholmes this week. Usually this is just like filler. But might as well. Oh God. Iris? That's incredible concentration, that is. I find it quite remarkable how she can focus on so many different things at once. Perhaps I should try drinking more herbal tea. The blend third from the right would be good for you, Runo. Oh, Iris. This girl is destined for great things, I'm sure. Look around? Ah, there's a button for scrolling. I see. The game is really pushing me to go back there. But I don't know, it could just be a red herring. I feel like I've gotten everything obvious that's actually clickable. This. What's this? It looks like part of an envelope, I think. Yes, I think you may be right. Perhaps it was torn off when the letter was opened. Is that significant? Well, it's a little out of place, perhaps. When you look around the room, there's no sign of a letter, but the rest of the envelope, in fact, is there. Ah, she's right. And yet, we have the torn off end of an envelope. It just strikes me as unusual. I agree. We better take this just in case. Alright, we have found the thing. We have found the evidence that the game has wanted us to find. Looks like you're having a good snoop around, eh? Inspector Gregson, but back so soon. After I threw that little Japanese fella in the clink, I went and reported this to the investigation division. In 5 minutes' time, this place will all be cornered on off by the yard. Oh, I see. Well, we'd better be leaving then. Poor Mr. Natsume must be feeling very low, being back in his cell again so soon. I'm sure. Whoa, we should probably go and... What's wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Out, out, sweet candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player. That struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. Now, how soundeth the next part? It is a tale, told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Indeed. Oh, happy day. Whoa. Walking Dead! The fella isn't dead at all? What was that nonsense he was saying, though? Did no one take like a pulse or something, or like yes, I think it was from William Shakespeare's Macbeth, a soliloquy from Act 5, Scene 5. Shakespeare. So it was that the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare, came back to life. If the man had indeed been poisoned, it transpired that it hadn't killed him. He was taken by emergency carriage to a nearby hospital for treatment, and Inspector Gregson evicted us from the scene of the crime. Whatever that now was. Unsuspicious fellow. Whatever do you think will happen now? Good question. What a strange situation for Mr. Natsume. Arrested for murder, but then the victim comes back to life. I think perhaps the victim was never dead in the first place. It seems very likely that Mr. Shakespeare did consume poison, as we deduced. But was it an accident? Attempted suicide? or attempted murder. Until the truth can be established, I imagine the police will keep Mr. Natsume in custody. I suppose so. Let's hope it doesn't come to anything more than a night in the cells. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? It looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? Excuse me. Could we have a word? Ah! No, he pieced. He just ran off. I feel sure that I've seen that man somewhere before. Where was it? I do too. I don't remember. Well, now that we've done as much investigating here as we can, I think, perhaps we ought to go to the prison and speak with Mr. Natsume again. A good idea. Look, Mr. Naruhodo. Mr. Natsume, have the police finished questioning you now? Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Oh, yes? What is he? Tell me, is he a ghost? Is he here to haunt me? Let me guess. You're talking about Mr. Sholmes? He actually calls himself a great detective, Mr. Natsume, not a ghost. But his diabolic deductions, they're not of this world. They've left me. Ah, cursed. I'm cursed, I tell you. Well, that sort of hurts. Credit where credit is due, Mr. Naruhodo. You were heavily involved in the deduction too. Yes, moving on. We have some wonderful news. Oh. The victim that we all thought was dead has come back to life again. Now, in the absolutely worst case, you could only be tried for attempted murder. That's great, isn't it, Mr. Natsume? It's terrible. Oh. I'm stuck in this cell, suffering for some silly wrong end of the stick. You did it, didn't you? Confess, you're a killer. Why the mustache? Constant questions. I'm sorry to hear that. Arg, this selfish shyster. Make up your mind. Are you dead or alive? Or if you were going to come back to life, why bother dying? Wickedly wishy-washy William. Well, it seems likely that Mr. Shamsphere was never actually dead in the first place. Ah, yes. That might make sense. And I'm pleased that he's alive, of course. Our lively debate last night was much fun. I'd be sad to think it was our last. Oh. Oops. Mr. Natsume, does this mean that you did see the victim last night? You met with Mr. Shamsphere, didn't you? I'm not saying another word. I demand to have a lawyer present. Who do you think I am? Please, Mr. Natsume, we need to hear your side of the story. Ugh, why am I cursed like this? Can you tell us exactly what happened last night then, Mr. Natsume? There's nothing to tell. But, Mr. Naruhodo Esquire, I'm eternally grateful to you for helping me with that accursed case yesterday. A case that saw poor Miss Green hospitalized after she ended up with a knife in her back. It's hard to believe that was only yesterday. After the trial was over, I trudged my way back to my lowly lodgings. And that evening, at past 9 it must have been, I visited Mr. Shamsphere. So, you did go to the victim's room then? As we feared. I didn't do anything wrong. I'd never been to his room before. It was the first time. Then, what made you decide to go? I bumped into him when I arrived back at the house. We got chatting and it developed into a discussion. but he had to go out, so I bade him farewell. That ties in with what Mr. Gary Dub said, that the victim went out and came back after 8. We met again later that evening, around 9 or just after, when I took him some nice tea I brewed as a gift. So it was you who brought the tea that had clearly been drunk at the scene then. And I suppose you were discussing the works of Shakespeare, were you? Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Romeo and Juliet. Who was the stronger? It was a delightful debate. I'm sure. Such a stimulating subject, Shakespeare. And the debate became very heated, so you slipped poison into Mr. Shakespeare's tea? No, never, not at all. Team Juliet won, that was me. And when I left his room, the flamboyant fellow was fighting fit. I swear it, categorically. Mr. Natsume, you often say the same thing about yourself, I've noticed. That you have a cursed existence. I'm sure I've mentioned this to you before, but I've been here in Great Britain for a year now, and in that time, I've learned that it's no place for me. It can be very trying to live in a foreign land and adapt to the ways of another culture. There are foreigners everywhere I look, and they all stare at me. They all laugh. That's the impression I get whenever I go out. It makes me scared to leave my room, which is why I've become a recluse. But even in my room, I find no respite from my fears. I've moved more times than I can remember, and then 1 week ago, I moved into Briar Road. But why? I mean, why did you choose that place? It doesn't seem very comfortable. Because the rent is cheap. I have so little money, it spoke to me. The rent? Obviously, there's a reason why it's cheap. Because the room is cursed. Cursed? Cursed how? The previous occupant, the man who lived there before I took the room, died there. Oh no. He was only a young man. One morning he was found dead, and no one could explain why. Surely no one would want to live in a room with a history like that. I didn't. When the letting agent recommended the place, I wavered. But I want books, and books cost money. A horrible history is a small price to pay. When I realized it would mean I could buy more books, I signed the lease like lightning. Brave or blinkered? But after I moved in, I soon came to realize what I'd done. I realized how horrible that room's history really was. Gosh, was it really so awful? How did the room's horrible history affect you, Mr. Natsume? What happened? At first, it was just a feeling of beady eyes boring into my back, watching me. Do you think that might have just been your mind playing tricks on you? No. My mind doesn't know any tricks. It was someone else. It's been one long nightmare after I was given the keys to the place. A nightmare? You've been having bad dreams, you mean? All the souls who have died in that room lean over me in my sleep and to try to strangle me. That really is horrible. And now I come to think of it, it happened again last night too. The very same night that Mr. Shakespeare was writhing in agony from the poison in his body. I was on the verge of being suffocated silently by those miserable spirits in my room. Is there a gas leak in his room? Is that the... Anyway. You simply must move out of that room as soon as possible. Yes, you're right. I know it. And that's why. I'm already searching for the next room with a history to call home. I think perhaps you should try to avoid accommodation with any kind of history at all. Otherwise, I'm scared that you yourself may become history. Whew. Susato-san sure knows how to make the man listen. Of course, Mr. Lord of the Manor is worried about the curse of my room as well. You mean Mr. Gary Deb? Yes, he knows that if people keep dying there, he'll never be able to rent it out again. Well, that's true. I, for one, wouldn't go near the place. Ah, perhaps that may explain why the landlord pays so much attention to the gas lamps and its tenants' movements. You mean because he's worried about their well-being? He does seem to have an unusually keen interest in the amount of gas in the pipes. There must be a reason why he keeps such close tabs on the occupants of his let rooms. What do you mean he pays so much attention to the gas lamps? Oh dear, no, it's nothing to do with you, Mr. Natsume. Please, forget I said anything. Oh, now you're talking about me behind my back as well. What's important is that Mr. Shamsphere isn't in fact dead at all. Once he's come around and he's able to tell us what happened, we'll be able to get you released. Yes, please. Oh, I do hope you're right. Excuse me. Inspector Gregson, I couldn't help overhearing what you just said, and on that note, I have some good news and some bad news. Oh, which do you want first? Always, every time, the bad news comes first. When hope is all you have, hold on to it. That's my guiding principle. Right, well, in that case, the good news it is. Huh? Sorry, but it's just a lot easier to explain everything that way. Then why did you ask me my preference? As you might have heard, the victim, Mr. Shamsphere, was just unconscious. He's come round now. Yes, we saw it happen all in its terrifying glory. He's still being treated by the doctors, but we managed to get a written statement from him already. Oh, isn't that wonderful, Mr. Natsume? Oh, thank goodness. It's all over then. I can leave this somber cell. Sorry, no. That's not on the cards. What? Why ever not, Inspector? Mr. Shamsphere has implicated someone as being responsible for what happened last night. Implicated someone? Oh dear. You don't mean... I'm sorry to say I do, yes. He's pointed the finger at you, Mr. Natsume. Nah! By sweet poison did he seek it to end my life. That wicked caitiff, Soseki Natsume. No. So I'm afraid you'll be appearing in court as planned. You'll be one to make the necessary preparations. No! And so, once again, Soseki-san found himself having to take the dock in the Old Bailey. Whether his room was haunted, or whether he was just terribly unlucky, I knew I had no choice. The following day, I would represent him in court, and to do my utmost to break the curse that blighted him. To be continued. The Old Bailey. This place always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine, break out in a nervous sweat all the time, all at the same time. Well, I didn't think I'd be back here so soon. That's my line. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Natsume. It was only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty here. Yes, we've somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this. Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole. Can't keep coming to court. I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I have bad news. I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning. So, here we are again. Yes, again. Judicial Assistant Miss Mikotoba Esquires. What's the bad news? Oh dear. You heard, didn't you? If you're coming shouting at the top of your voice, People can't help hearing what you say. No, I am sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Miss Susato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barrack Van Zeeks. Yay! Van Zeeks? Ah! Oh no! Oh no, no! The so-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. In the trial 2 days ago, he pursued Soseki-san and I relentlessly. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through, but still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter. After all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The legend of the Reaper that says, nothing can save a person in the dock when Lord Van Zeeks is the prosecutor. Oh no! That even if the person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end one way or another. And we've experienced it firsthand. A man we successfully defended met the most terrifying end after his acquittal, right here in the Old Bailey. Ah, do I have to put up with those ice-cold eyes boring into my soul again? Cursed by evil spirits and now by the Reaper. Petrifying perils, potentially. Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Ah, yes? I'm innocent. You have to believe me. You, more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. And this promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Oh yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh, if he were here, I might be tempted to rely on his help. And that could be seen as weakness. If Lord Van Zeeks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least, that's my gut feeling. Mr. Naruhodo. You're right. Yes, you're so right. Oh, well said, Mr. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Well said. I swear on the sword at my side, in the spirit of Kazuma that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do. I'll set you free, with honor. Oh, yes. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. I now call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned Nipponese friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just in my imagination, it's really there. Lord Van Zeeks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. It was some time ago that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailey, I believe. These past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all. Yet now, he's back in the courtroom. Though for some reason, only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random, quote-unquote random, to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? Absolutely. I have a feeling this larrikin is wasn't innocent before. I must say, I feel especially ruthless on days when my hat refuses to sit right. Oh, well, I'd rather like how you're wearing your hat. I think the ruthless look is very fetching, actually. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. I couldn't agree more. I need to take home 5 bob tonight, or the missus will go through the roof. Oh, may the Lord show us all the light here, and lead his flock to a righteous verdict. The British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? It's quite extraordinary to think that the power of judgment is in the hands of 6 members of the public, and that the judge can only pass sentence when all jurors are in agreement about the defendant's guilt. 6 citizens of London, chosen at quote-unquote random. Or at least, that's the idea. The prosecution will draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. I see it's on purpose. Very well. Let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zeeks, your opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric Nipponese before has had dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime, namely, that of the attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witnesses to the stand. Witnesses? Plural? The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Soseki Natsume from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student to study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume. Yes, my lord, sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken that you swore on oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember it as if it were yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord, but close enough. Believe me, this is the last place I want to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case for the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garridev household, where the defendant has lodgings. In the ground floor room of the victim, Mr. William Shamsphere. The defendant had already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shamsphere collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord, suspected something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident? Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to or exit from the room impossible. Although the victim, Mr. Shamsphere, lives to tell tale, he very nearly did it. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. And I have a photographic print here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Yes, a chilling scene indeed. The man looks very deceased. We're missing some things here, huh? That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what he was. Very well. I accept this photographic print as evidence to the court. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes. As a defendant, do you have anything to say at this juncture? They're haunted. Haunted by evil spirits. Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings. There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. A woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned. And me? What about me? I've nearly been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night it happened. When I returned from Mr. Shamspeare's room, I lit my gas stove and climbed into bed. But before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me. You must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold, my running nose would freeze. The point is, I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witnesses. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shamsphere, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Good grief! Order! Order! Yes, that's the crux of this whole case. If Sosaki-san is innocent, then why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, what have you to say to this accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shamspeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again, never. The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do, thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine the witnesses at least once. Therefore, I call upon these witnesses now for formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection? None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court now. Yes, my lord. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor. I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. Ah, my tea was completely harmless. He couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Strychnine takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't keel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have had perfectly been able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward. Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims his tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though, the teacups have been examined for traces of the poison, haven't they? Why didn't I think of that? Well, as it happens, no, we haven't been able to. Did I hear you correctly, Inspector? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance? How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't that the first thing you should have done? My learned Nipponese friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea, not that it was overlooked. Unable? Why? It's simple enough. There was none left, not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed. With current scientific techniques, it's not possible to test for poison under certain circumstances. We only need a drop, but that one drop does have to exist, funnily enough. The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than a tea passed the victim's lips on the night in question. I see. Thank you. The matter is clear. Cast your eyes over the jury, my learned friend. What? You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused's guilt. Your client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose, and your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. He's right. I can feel all 6 of the jurors looking daggers at me. But I can't let them beat me down. I won't. Counsel for the defense. Proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. Clock took some tea. Were you and your neighbor good friends then? Ah, no. We weren't friends. Not at all. Not at all. Never. Ever. A simple no would have sufficed. Then, why did you decide to pay him a visit? Mr. Shamsford fancies himself having great literary knowledge. As a fellow scholar of English literature, we find much to talk about together. Come now, no Nipponese could understand the finer points of English literature. And on the night in question, that was the topic of conversation as well, I presume. It was the day of my last trial. When I was acquitted, I just arrived back at my lodgings when I ran to Mr. Shamsford outside on the street. That was around 6 o'clock. We exchanged 1 or 2 pleasantries, but it soon turned to a heated discussion. He was on his way out at the time, though, so I promised to visit his room that evening at 9 to continue our debate. But did I have ill intentions? No, not one, not two, not any, not at all. Never, ever. A simple no would have sufficed, I feel. Then tell the court what did happen when you visited the victim's room. Uh, 11?
Hold it!
A literary debate about Shakespeare's works, I think you said, didn't you? Shakespeare? Ah, a very worthy topic of conversation, I must say. Oh, yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet, who was stronger? It was a profoundly pleasurable parley. Romeo and Juliet. Who was stronger? I know I'm going to regret asking this, but how did the debate go? Well, we both agreed that we would reach a conclusion more quickly with a reenactment, so we battled it out, in a Greco-Roman style, naturally. What? Mr. Shamsford had all sorts of costumes in his room for just the contest. So when you say a reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume? He as Romeo, I as Juliet, and after a vigorous wild tussle, I as Juliet came out on top. A victory I'll cherish forever. I dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim, correct? I boiled the water in my room and made a pot to take with me. I heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see. It's true, there was no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room. I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless, of course it was. And do you have any basis for that statement, witness?
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there? That's correct. Anyone would think that the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. He must have licked it dry. Which is a pity, because 1 drop is all we would have needed to produce it to analyze it for poison. And you say that you returned home to your room at 11 o'clock, Mr. Natsume? Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it. The landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. He confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 that night. And how was the landlord able to attest to this? He, said it was the lamps, I believe. The lamps, Inspector. When tenants return to their rooms and start using gas, the lamps in the other parts of the house flicker. Yes, Mr. Garridav seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenants. There's only one key to Mr. Shansfield's room. I know that for certain. So he must have locked the door himself, from inside his room. The victim has confirmed that to be the case, yes. So I'm right. My tea was harmless. Completely harmless. If you take poison, you die. Everyone knows that. It's not that simple, I'm afraid. What do you mean? Strychnine takes some time to affect the body.
Hold it!
How long does it take for symptoms to appear then? According to the coroner I was speaking to at the yard, about 30 minutes after the poison is consumed. Then the victim suffers violent convulsions, cramping and stiffness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. So there's a 30-minute interval between when the poison is ingested and the onset of symptoms. There seems to be a lot of different types of poison in the world, that's for sure. Oh dear, death by poisoning again. It's always so awful. 30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. You can't deny that. And it further degrades Soseki-san's alibi. I have the medical report for the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. It spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it. Very well. The court will add this report to the court record as evidence. Oh yes, I see it here. Delayed onset of symptoms. Great. Alright, let's look at the evidence. Let's look at our new evidence. Cause of coma. (1:38 a.m.) That is interesting time window. No container poisoned. There's always a broken watch at the time of that like tells information. Very convenient. Whoever opened this envelope didn't bother with a letter opener or scissors, did they? Yes. Whoever opened it was clearly someone with an unrefined temperament. And judging from the angle of the rip here, the person in question must have been right-handed. Miss Susato. I think perhaps someone's been reading too much of the Adventures of Herlock Sholmes. You can never read too much of it, Mr. Naruto. Never.
Hold it!
Very carefully. You just well, actually the opposite of very carefully. You just Hulk smash. The argument still stands, you say. This is what Mr. Natsume has been saying, isn't it? The pair of them drank tea together that night, so if there was any poison in it, the victim wouldn't have been able to lock the door after the accused left later on. Exactly. Ah, me and my tea are innocent. Sweet and innocent, I tell you. I'm afraid, sir, that doesn't follow. You see, strychnine is a slow-acting poison. In other words, it takes time for symptoms to appear. So you could have left the room up to 30 minutes after the victim drank the tea. As long as you did that, Mr. Shansfair could have locked the door after he'd gone. But no. We drank the tea straight away. The battle over whether Romeo and Juliet was stronger, that came after the tea. Do you have any evidence to support that statement? In my great homeland, the Empire of Japan, we have a saying, drink tea while it's hot. Sure, a proverb will satisfy the prosecution. I'm afraid there's no conclusive proof to support the defendant's assertion. On the contrary, there are some sufficient grounds to infer his guilt in this matter. No. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? If I could voice a personal opinion, Mr. Naruhodo. Of course, go ahead. Mr. Natsume is arguing for his innocence so adamantly and so persistently, and Inspector Gregson just brushes what he says aside. It's really quite infuriating. I agree. So we need to find an inconsistency in what the inspector is saying, I think. I'm afraid so. As things stand, the jurors are sure to find Mr. Natsume guilty. As I see it, what we need to focus on is the poison and the tea. Let's listen to this testimony carefully again. So it's this statement, I think. Let's take a look again. I didn't notice this puddle here. Interesting. Very interesting. This must be the cup that Mr. Shamspeare was drinking from then. It's stained on the inside. Tea does that, I'm afraid. Even green tea. Oh, really? I've never noticed before. You've never noticed? Well, I never leave it in the cup long enough to leave a mark. I like to gulp it down. Drink tea while it's hot. That's Japanese way, isn't it? Oh dear. So many people seem to have the wrong idea about our culture. And most of them are Japanese. The line is suspicious to me. This is the teacup from which Mr. Natsume was drinking. Yes. Unlike the other one, the inside of the cup is completely clean. I suppose he must have drunk the contents before the tea had a chance to leave a mark. I always gulp it down too. Sorry, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, if you just sip it little by little, it goes cold. Clearly, I shall have to instruct you in the proper way to take tea. Okay. Does that help me? Do I have anything to refute this? Perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. So would he be unable to lock the door? Wait, Dave, I thought I clicked back, but I clicked advance. Alright, fuck it.
Objection!
Nope. Pushing buttons. We also don't know what the fork was for. I mean, I guess it's something to do with the soap. I don't think it's eating the soap. There's obviously like some shady stuff going on with the soap. All right, it's that time again.
Objection!
I don't know where to go, so we are matching, my boys.
Objection!
So it is this. Okay. Is it the time? Well, let's find out where it goes. Your argument still stands, you say? I think not, Inspector. Come again? I think you'll find that you've overlooked a very significant chronological inconsistency here. So what was the time? I thought it was... I presented the medical report, which says like at 1:30 is when he collapsed from the poison, which would mean that he drank the tea at 1 a.m. I guess, I don't know. Whatever, I'm here for the ride. Chrono, what? What are you on about? According to this report, the victim must have consumed the poison at around... Consumed the poison at 1:30? Okay. Around 1:30 in the morning. And yet, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11. Okay, so it was that obvious. I was like, it can't be that obvious. Yes, that's right. There's more than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to it 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Wait, was they both reacted? The defense's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zeeks? Pray forgive the discourtesy in my mind if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hollow chalice this luncheon. How could it have happened, do you ask? Oh, goodbye, wine glass. I do hate to shatter illusions. My Nipponese friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. A phantom? Is it so hard to imagine that the victim drank his tea after the accused had left? This is why I didn't want to present it, because like, there's tea marks on the cup, So that means like the tea was there for a while. So I thought this is what happened. So I was thinking too far ahead. Anyway, for example, at the time stated in the medical report, yes, at around 1:30.
Objection!
Mr. Natsume brought the tea with him to drink together with his neighbor. And in Japan, there's a well-known saying, drink tea while it's hot.
Objection!
And in my country, there is an even more apt saying, there is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. The point is, if there was such a long gap, there may be other ways to explain how the victim came to be poisoned. Other possibilities. What sort of possibilities, Counsel? Well, for example, the man could have had another visitor. Ah, yes, the classic, there was a third person at the scene. Another visitor? That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend, from someone who has nothing to substantiate it. Or the victim could have taken the poison of his own volition. You suggest that this may have been a suicide, Counsel?
Objection!
Mr. Shamsphere has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
But he could be lying. Is something wrong, Lord Van Zeeks? I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray, forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Ouch, ouch, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Who, sir, are you? William Shamsphere, my lord. Alas, 'twas I, undone by these bitter events. I am the victim. Whoa. What's he doing here? The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness? Very well, Counsel. I grant your request with interest. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself. Happy am I, Shamsphere, to regale thee with my tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell. My own tale of worse woe. I can regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence in perfect English. That will do, Mr. Natsume. Let the court now hear from the victim. Oh, it's this guy. Alright, so that's Mr. Shamsphere. Who's that other man beside him? Yes, I feel sure that we've caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. A writer of words so sweet they do scent the breeze, an inventor of ideas so profound they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shakespeare, were the great bard to record to life anew. Lo, what a magnificent man. Good fellows, I am he who ponders such a miracle, William Shamsphere. Oh, the name's Meterman. Adrian B. Meterman. I'm trying to see, like, is there a pun here? Adron B? Adron B? I'll figure it out later, I suppose. I work for the Ultima Gas Company, East End branch office. Ah, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road. Yes, she's right. It's him. Oh, what's this? What's that man doing over there? I mean, obviously the meter men part is like obvious, but I think the first part, it's probably related because that's just how they do the names in these games these days. He looks like he's trying to sing at Soseki-san's lodgings. Is something wrong, Mr. Naruto? Excuse me, can we have a word? Yes, we spotted him outside Mr. Gary Depp's house that morning. And he's a gas company employee? What does he have to do with this case?
So, Mr. William Shakespeare, you are the victim in this miserable affair, correct?
Oh heaven, oh hell, do you command me to remember? That sweet poison that didst cross me and cross mine innocent lips.
I subpoenaed him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room from doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure.
Behold, you have only to rearrange the letters of my name to see that me is a seraph, an angel indeed. Thus be I noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily honest of heart, as all heavenly angels be. Setting up expectations there, huh? Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. Nope, not at all. The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid. They're actually taking this seraph anagram idea seriously?
Thank you, witnesses, for your illuminating introductions.
But my lord, what's the man next to Mr. Shamsfair doing here? The gas man, I mean.
What? Me? Well now.
Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. You recall, I presume, your earlier impertinence when you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question. And moreover, the victim is a compulsive liar. What? No, I didn't quite say that. This young chin stroker is here to controvert your wild claims conclusively. Is that not so, Mr. Meterman? Hang on, no. I was just here.
I hereby call for your formal testimonies. You will tell the court as lucidly as possible what happened on the night in question.
One may smile and be a villain. Yes, it doth pain me, but let the truth be spoken, the truth of that wintry night of my discontent. The snow lay about. My neighbor did cometh in the evening, bearing a gift of tea. But merry, bitter was his drink, and when he left, I did fall prostrate on my table. 'Twas the tea alone that did pass my lips that late hour, naught else.
I was outside this bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room. No one else visited his room but that short little round-backed Eastern fella.
Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shamsfield's room all night?
That's right. Of course, the bloke's window is all but blocked up, isn't it? But there's a little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room.
So I spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered in through that.
The question is, sir, why?
Well now, that's because he's on my list. What a piece of work is a man. Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment? What are you talking about? This buzzing busybody hath not part in this play. I pray thee, pay him no heed. Make no more ado about his tedious words.
What'd you say about me?
Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more.
Indeed, that is so.
And, as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals,
There was no one other than the accused present at the time who could have carried out this crime. Well, I believe that this may be the final testimony of the trial. Now, counsel, the defense may proceed with a cross-examination. Yes, my lord.
Hold it!
Gift of tea. To be clear, my neighbor, you are referring to the defendant, Mr. Natsume? Oh, indeed, sire. Perchance thou wouldst I'd call him the man from upstairs? And at which time did the mustachioed Nipponese visit you in your room? Our meeting was promised for the hour of 9, and lo did he come to tender a gift of fragrant tea. Details of which are in accordance with the defendant's own testimony, yes. And we were broiled in such literary debate as history not seen before. By which I presume he means their discussion about who was the stronger, Romeo or Juliet? I, Shamsphere, did play the part of young Romeo, whilst my neighbor played the fair Juliet. Each of us dressed as would our characters be, to bring weight upon our merry experiment. I dare not imagine the scene. Frailty, thy name is woman. Canst thou imagine how dismayed I was? Yes, I'd heard of the Eastern art of jujitsu, but ne'er did I dream 'twould be a skill practiced by the comely maiden. Juliet beat Romeo up? This is not helping our case. I believe the court has heard enough about your earth-shattering literary debate. Perhaps you could reiterate your statement about the tea that the accused brought to your room. My liege, I am thy servant. Gladly, I would do thy bidding.
Hold it!
Let me stop you there. Mr. Natsume left your room at 11 o'clock, but it wasn't until after 2 that the poison made you collapse. That amounts to more than 3 hours of missing time. If the defendant had really put the poison in your tea, that 3-hour window of time is something you're going to have to explain. Gladly, 'tis an easy task. What? I did drink of the tea, not whilst my guest this Terry, but after he took leave of me. Faith, 'twas stone cold, but at 1 hour past post midnight, verily were my lips parched.
Objection!
That doesn't sound normal. Nay, 'tis quite ordinary, sire. After all, thou would recall our fiery debate. Amidst such an argument, there'd be no time for fiery tea. Romeo and Juliet again. And who was stronger? Mr. Shamsphere, in summary, allow me to confirm. Did you not come here with the intention of naming your attacker? But of course, my liege. 'Twas the stooped lover of words did attempt to shuffle me off this mortal quarrel. We all know what that means.
Hold it!
So, you didn't have any kind of evening meal? Dinner? Supper? Ha! Fie on luxury, fie on gluttony. To eat thrice daily is but a waste of time. Sorry? I would that my belly were full, no more oft than the sun doth rise. Well, most heroic eating habits, I must say. Night and day do I fill my hours with learned study of the great bard and playwright. Hence is it that there doth not in my chamber be then the costumes of mine art. That would appear to be the case, as even a rodent was found starved to death in your room. Now that I think of it, it's not just food that was conspicuously missing from that room, is it? I don't recall seeing a single player script anywhere. Or I have devoured them all. Oh, Jesus. You've eaten them? Every word be within my skull. Didst thou imagine otherwise? Right. That wasn't misleading at all. Now, could you turn around, do you think? Which brings us to a conclusion that the only way the poison could have passed the victim's lips is in the tea. I was outside this bloke's window in the freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on his room.
Hold it!
But the windows of the house have all been filled in. A historical artifact of the now defunct window tax. Yeah, you're right there. All bricked up horribly. But as it happens, there's a little part of the brickwork at the bottom corner that's been opened up. I was looking in through that gap. Yes, there were a few bricks loose, weren't there? For some strange reason, a couple of bars of soap lined up on the ledge outside as well. I don't like going around poking my chin up in other people's businesses, especially on freezing cold nights. But them's my orders, so that's what I'll keep doing, as long as there's breath in my body. What's with all the theatricals today? Out of interest, Mr. Meaderman, after the accused had left and returned to his own lodgings, did you see the victim leave the room at all? No, he never left. He was in that room the whole time, as far as I'm concerned. And we can therefore discount the possibility of suicide. How could you be sure of that? The police carried out a thorough investigation of the scene and found no receptacle for the poison. And since we know the victim didn't leave his room, and hence didn't dispose of the victim's container himself, it's clear that this was no attempt at suicide. Only the culprit could have removed the receptacle. Oh yes. Lucidly explained, counsel. Thank you. It really was. You can't argue with the logic.
Hold it!
You say a short little round-back Eastern fellow. So you can't be sure it was the defendant then?
Objection!
How many other short little round-back Nipponese with a mustache do you think there are in London? Well, of course. It's only a narrow gap and it was quite dark, so I didn't see the mustache. But he showed up at around 9, so I'm pretty sure of myself. And when the person you saw arrived, did he and Mr. Shakespeare drink tea together? Nah, sorry, I couldn't say. Why not? Because I couldn't see into the room all that well, could I? But what I did see was a silhouette of that little roundback fellow wearing a pretty dress. Then, the pair of them started some kind of wrestling match. I tell you, I didn't know what to make of it. I suppose that was the Romeo and Juliet championship battle getting underway. Championship battle? Mr. Meaderman, allow me to confirm one final time. Apart from the accused, can you state with certainty that no one else visited the victim on the night in question? No question. Gasman's honor. My lord. Goodness me. Yes, Mr. Foreman. I've kept my mouth shut and listened up to now, but this has gone on long enough. Are you all with me? Yes! Are we to understand that you ladies and gentlemen of the jury are in agreement with one another? That you've reached a unanimous decision? Too right we have. Are you all with me? Yes! Wait, no! The defense is still in the middle of a cross-examination. To be honest, I was holding out for a bit of hope for you, young man. Especially after you identified those few hours that followed the accused leaving the victim's room. Yes, the 3 missing hours, as you put it. But in the end, what difference do they make? None, as far as I can see. And since that's now apparent, there's really no reason to delay our decision any longer. Like I was saying before, if I don't take 5 bob home with me tonight, the missus will blow her top. Huh? What's that? Sorry, I didn't quite catch what you said. Very well. Let this court be apprised of your decisions. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings as to the defendant's culpability.
Guilty!
Guilty. Guilty.
Use
Guilty.
a...
Guilty.
Guilty!
of you? Well, it would appear that the jury is indeed unanimous. So, this time at least, it seems justice will be done. All's well that ends well, as they say. This calls for a toast, I feel. To the guilty being punished, except I forgot about the game mechanic. The new game mechanic that's supposed to come up here. Ah! Yeah, Mr. Naruhodo, please. The trial isn't over yet. What do you mean, Susato? You did this 2 days ago! What about the information I found in this encyclopedia of British law I have? That obscure right that belongs to the defense in these situations. Remember? A summation examination. Yes, that's right. We don't have a jury in Japanese courts, of course. But here in a British court of law, if we can reverse the decision of a majority of the jurors, we can force the trial to continue. This trial can't end now. Whatever it takes, it just can't let that happen. The defense moves to invoke its right to a summation examination, my lord. Why am I not surprised at my learned Nipponese friend's inability to admit defeat? You choose to cling desperately to some archaic rule you barely comprehend instead of accepting the truth. Certainly no other defense counsel in recent times has exercised the right to a summation examination. Because they all know that once the jury's mind is set, it cannot be altered. Nevertheless, the right remains and must be upheld. The defense counsel's request is granted. This court will proceed with a summation examination as outlined in the Encyclopedia of British Law. Thank you, my lord. Are you and your fellows prepared, Mr. Foreman? Believe me, my lord, we all know about this young lad's tenacity. And we're ready for it. Very well. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby call upon each of you to state the grounds upon which you find a defendant guilty of the crime for which he stands accused. The jurors' contentions. The victim may not be well off, but he's a noble man and straight up. There's no reason to doubt the man. Well, I do declare the good gentleman has no reason to lie. In fact, I think he's rather splendid. Just look at the cues by comparison. He's Japanese, stoops all the while, and has a mustache. Very fishy. Casual racism. There's no evidence to suggest the gangling actor is a fraudman. For now, at least. I really don't care, I just need this shot to end quickly. 3 hours of missing time is nothing when you reach my age, you know. Nothing at all. That is not a lot to work with. I knew it. Every single one of them seems completely convinced. It would seem that all the jurors have come to the conclusion that Mr. Shansford is a fine, upstanding, and honest citizen. If you ask me, they've all been bewitched by his strange theatrical movements. And sadly, nothing Mr. Natsume has said appears to have registered at all. Well, here goes. Let's not forget, I pleaded with the jury on Sosaki-san's behalf before, and it worked. So you never know. Before we begin, it might be an idea for me to remind you how exactly a summation examination works, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, well, you're still very new to British law after all. That's true, I suppose. And Sosaki-san's fate is entirely in my hands now, too. There's always a chance I might have forgotten some crucial detail. Perhaps I should hear Susato-san out. I wonder, should I let her tell me the tutorial? Yeah, it's been 2 years. Alright, so if you remember, the key to changing the juror's mind is the things that they say themselves. Yes, it's coming back to me. First, it's important to listen very carefully to each juror's statement. Then, if it sounds as though one of those statements might contradict another, I have to pit the corresponding two jurors against each other to prove one or the other of them wrong. Yes, that's right. In many ways, it's very similar to a normal cross-examination. It's 2 years for me. It's 2 days for him. All right, then. All that remains now is to do it. Without further ado, please, Consul, proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Yo, you can watch him walking and it won't be laggy.
Hold it!
Well, there are plenty of people in London who seem to be noble but poor. Couldn't some of them also be liars? I have no doubt about it. Like that shaky client of yours, for example. Absolutely not. Mr. Natsume is no liar. Look, the point is, the only thing that passed the victim's lips that night was that Japanese man's tea. When you take the gasman's testimony into account, as well, the truth couldn't be any clearer. Well, that's alarmingly logical. Well, let me be frank here. I'm a gentleman with a gentleman's values. If it turns out that the old Shakespearean chum was a rotten liar after all, I'd gladly change my decision about the defendant. And I'm sure my fellow gentlemen on the jury would do the same. Isn't that right? Well, yes, perhaps. Though I don't see it happening. What's that? Elderly gent at the end here, you know. You'll have to speak up. Look, I really don't care about all this nonsense. I just need this trial to be over. How many gentlemen do we actually have on the jury, then? Alright, sir. I may hold you to that. Don't forget what you said. Alright. Do I have to repress this, I wonder? Because I want to continue with the rest, pressing the rest, but I'll come back to you.
Hold it!
Are you saying you believe the man to be trustworthy because he's rather splendid? No, that's not what I said. The point is, the man is the victim here. What reason would he have to lie? And yes, he is rather splendid. So you say, yet again. Meanwhile, the man who stands accused behaves so suspiciously, it's exhausting to look at him. I'm afraid he's not splendid at all. Splendid logic there, madam. Thank you so much.
Hold it!
No. Not one of those things is a reason to find the man guilty. But he is fishy. There's no point in dancing around the fact. He's Japanese, he has a mustache, and he stoops. You see, you arrive at the conclusion in just 3 steps. 3 steps. Just like a waltz, in fact. You know, the more I think about it, the more the trial seems like a dance. You seem to be several steps ahead of yourself, though. And you're on the wrong foot. No, there's nothing but circumstantial evidence here. There's no actual proof of this defendant's guilt. But the victim's version of events is backed up by what the big chin man next to him says, isn't it? 1, he saw the Japanese man there. 2, he saw no one else. And 3, he saw the Japanese man there. Oh, that's another 3 steps. All this really does seem like more and more like a waltz, doesn't it? Right, and the prosecution will waltz its way to victory if I let you speak much more.
Hold it!
A fraudsman? What do you mean by that, madam? It really is the most tiresome problem for the company. Most irritating. We can be absolutely certain that a customer is stealing from us, but without hard evidence, we can't even threaten to take action for fear of being sued. I'm sorry, you've lost me a little there. Who are you? I'm the wife of Augustus Altamont, owner of the Altamont Gas Company. Good gracious, Altamont Gas, you say? Gas is the future of energy in this country and around the globe, but proper handling is essential. As I'm sure our employee from the East End branch office would be the first to agree. Absolutely, Lady Quimby. Gotta be used properly. Altamont Gas is the best in the world, of course. I think we may have solved the mystery of the bow from earlier, Mr. Naruhodo. Right. He bowed in deference to his employer's wife, did he? Ah, so would I be right in assuming that the reason Mr. Meterman was watching what Mr. Shamster was up to in his room? I'm afraid there's no end to the lengths the population of the East End will go to in order to steal our gas. So I really have no choice when the company identifies somebody as a possible fraudster. But to dispatch a worker to watch the suspect day and night, we're very thorough in our investigation. You know, it's the usual. Conflict of interest, no problem. Perjury, no problem. Everything's fine, smile. So you mean Mr. Shamsphere is... I wouldn't come out and say it in public, but you can finish that sentence with a grubby little gas thief. You have noticed the public gallery in here, have you? The eye of man has not heard, the ear of man hath not seen. Faith, wouldst thou wound me with thy words, were I to let them penetrate the skin? But seraphs hear not insults, only choir of angels in the song. We may not have evidence yet, but my workers won't stop buzzing around you until they find it. And when they do, you'll find yourself blasted back to your angelic heights in an Altamont gas explosion. Excuse me? So Mr. Shamster has been stealing gas. I wonder, juror number 4, if you wouldn't mind adding that information to your statement? My pleasure. Was it the bit about that ripping that thief apart you enjoyed? A little before the part about abject violence, if it's not too much trouble. Yes, of course. This could be it. This could shift the balance. He's a common thief, so that'll be used and to refute the other stuff. But let's see what these two have to say. Which is probably not much, but...
Hold it!
You keep talking about needing to take home some money. What's that all about, sir? Finish last. Finish last, that's what it's about. What's that? I'm talking about the derby at the Hyde Park, aren't I? It was the Queen's Cup last week, wasn't it? Derby? It was a dead cert, that's the thing. I couldn't lose, so I took my wife's secret savings like. But then that hopeless old mare went and did unthinkable. Ah, that stupid finish last. Oh no. Horse racing? Uma Musume? This dude is hooked. Oh dear. I think it's clear what happened, isn't it? This is the day that Mrs. uses her savings for a trip down the pub. So come on, let this Mrs. lie down. Just give it up. No, that's not going to happen.
Hold it!
What do you really mean by that, sir?
Well, I'm not one to boast, but I get up at 5 every morning, I do.
At 5? You're a really early riser then, aren't you?
Huh? What's that now?
I said you're an early riser.
Oh, well, I wouldn't say that. I mean, I like to while away the hours in the evening reading books as well. But by about 2 in the morning, I'm usually too tired to go... Oh my god. to go on.
He sleeps at 2 in the morning and gets up at 5? Oh my, that means he only has 3 hours of sleep each night.
Huh? What's that, dear?
Only 3 hours of sleep each night. That's right.
You see, 3 hours of missing time, like I said.
Wow, he was very literal.
There's not much, is it?
This really isn't helping. The key to summation examination is identifying contradictions between jurors' statements, Mr. Naruhodo. Right. And once I found 2 jurors whose statements can't coexist, I need to pit those 2 jurors against each other. Then hopefully, when they see that what they're saying doesn't make sense, they'll change their leaning. Yes, and if you're able to change the minds of a majority of the jurors, the trial will continue. But conversely, if you're unable to do that, the judge will declare the trial over and move to adjudication. And I can't let that happen. Somehow or another, I have to turn this trial around. This is liar. Okay, liar. I mean, being a thief is not a liar. But I will go to 4 and hit that. Or oh, the order shouldn't matter. No, that's not helpful. It's these two. So it's this one probably.
Objection!
These two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer, counsel? Juror number 1. What are you yelling about, lad? I presume that you've heard juror number 4's statement made by the wife of the owner of Altamont Gas. Look at this walking animation. Beautiful 30 FPS footage. I should probably not have the stream at 60 FPS, but I'm like too lazy to actually change it, so. Well, yes. The victim, who you claim to be a noble, straight-up man, in fact, turns out to be a common thief. So the good lady says, but there's no evidence, is there? You and I both heard them say as much. It's true, we don't have evidence as such. Just yet. But the claims aren't baseless, you know. What? You heard me. Seeing as his operation has already been compromised, I would suggest that the court hears testimony from our East End branch office. Employee over there. I'll do whatever you say, my lady. Gasman's honor. Juror number 1. You say that you're a man of your word. If I could show that Mr. Shamster was a liar, you assured me that you would reconsider your decision about the defendant's guilt. Yes, I did say that. And as a man of honor, I'll hold to it. As I'm sure the other gentlemen of the jury will. Me? Oh, well, yes. Now that we've found out the man's a liar, perhaps we ought to consider the matter further. Well, if I'm perfectly honest, I haven't heard half of what you've all been saying. So if this means you'll recap a few points, that would suit me down to the ground. Oh no, I'm not having any part of this. I want this trial over and done with. In that case, I shall change my leaning. So, Mr. William Shamsphere, if that is your real name, we of the jury demand to know exactly what kind of man you really are. Oh, that was easy. That's 4 jurors. 4 for not guilty. Yes, Mr. Naruhodo. Victory. Order, order. Well, this is quite extraordinary, I must say. As a result of the defense's summation examination, the jury's leaning has changed. Now only 2 jurors say guilty, whilst 4 say not guilty. I've therefore declared this court to be in a state of disaccord, and order the trial to continue. Oh, goodbye, glass. You have spoiled the bouquet, Mr. Shamsphere. The ladies and gentlemen of the jury now find that they are unable to trust you, the victim. But you gods will give us some faults to make us men. So God mend me. I do swear. This gasman speaketh that which concerns him most. Not but gas, not but thin air. Aye, it burneth bright the while, but it hath no substance, and it doth reek foul. Oi, what did you say? Do I take it, Mr. Shamsphere, that you deny the allegations of gas thievery? Most heartily, my lord. Hast thou forgot? I am as a seraph, an angel, noble of mind, sweet of nature, and verily, honest of heart. Ah, you flowery-mouthed pompous beanpole, just because I haven't got the evidence yet. Mr. Shamsphere, if in fact you are not of noble of mind, sweet of nature, or honest of heart, if you are a liar, then your testimony should have no sway in this courtroom. It is my considered opinion that at the present time, no other possible culprit of this crime has been identified. All testimony heard by the court thus far heavily implicates the defendant. In short, it would not be unreasonable at this stage for me to rule on the case. Oh no. However, in light of the fact that the jury has expressed concern about the fidelity of this witness, I believe it would be inappropriate for this court not to pursue the point further.
Objection!
I assure you, my lord, that would be a waste of the court's time. The gas in this case are unrelated. Juror number 4. Yes? Didn't you say before that although you had no hard evidence to prove this man had been stealing gas, you have strong grounds for suspecting him? That's right, we do. Don't we, worker? Absolutely, Lady Quinby. Gasman's honor. Very well then, we will hear your testimony now. You will tell the court precisely why you believe the victim, Mr. William Shamsphere, has been stealing gas. Yes, my lord, it'll be my pleasure. On the Altamont gas name, if I may, my lord. Go ahead, madam. This worker's testimony may have a significant bearing on the good name of my husband's company. Therefore, I should like to take the stand alongside him in a supervisory role, if you wouldn't mind. This is definitely not legal, or should not be legal. Absolutely not. Wahoo! Oh yes, Miss Honey. Yeah. Very well. As an exception, I shall honor your request. Thank you, my lord. You wait until the boss gives you an earful. Oh, it's gonna sting, you mark my words. So, you will both testify before the court on the subject of the legal consumption of the Altamont Gas Company's fuel. Yes. Is that clear, my good man? Clear as Altamont gas, my lady. Which is the clearest in the world. Do you think the gas has gone to his head, Miss Susato? I think the man is just a very dedicated employee, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm proud to be the company's East End branch investigator and meter money collection agent. Altamont gas meters accept penny bits. Each coin giving customers about 2 hours of gorgeous gas. And yet, the meter in Mr. Shamsphere's room didn't have a single coin in it. The meter doesn't appear to have been tampered with though, and the collection agent has the only key. Somehow, he's been using all the flaming gas he wants without paying a penny. If that's not thieving, what is? Pray forgive the discourtesy. The irrelevance of this testimony caused me to turn to my hollow chalice. What do you mean by that remark, Lord Van Zieks? Did the mustachio's Nipponese man poison the gangling excuse for an actor, or didn't he? That is all that should concern this court, and yet now we must listen to this abhorrence. Clearly, what separates the vast British Empire and your Eastern Island nation is more than geographical distance. But this could turn out to be crucial testimony. The cross-examination must go ahead. Oh shit, well, do what you will. Lord Van Zieks appears to be in a violent mood. Yeah, he does. An attempted poisoning and an incident of gas theft with no supporting evidence. It's true that they would appear completely unrelated at first glance. But I wonder, truth tends to be buried in the most unusual places. And the first step in uncovering it will be to establish just who and what this man really is.
Hold it!
And this is who he is. So does that mean you enter people's houses in order to empty their gas meters? That I do. Have to try to catch people when they're in. Then I ask permission to come inside and do my business. Does that mean you've been into Mr. Natsume's room before, as well as that of Mr. Shamsphere? Well now, interesting you should bring that up, because I couldn't believe how little money was in his meter. I mean, how a pair of them survive the winter is beyond me. It really is. Knowing Mr. Natsume, he probably spends all his gas money on books. And then when he's finished reading them, he probably burns them for warmth. You will kindly reiterate your statement about the gas meters themselves, Mr. Meterman. Not much to say, really, but as you wish.
Hold it!
So all London houses have a gas supply that are fitted with these gas meters, are they? They're the latest model, the height of technology developed by our company, Altamont Gas. And anyone who uses our gas will have one of these meters in their property, yes. So if a 3-pence coin gives 2 hours of gas, most people would use about 3 coins in a night? A bit more than that usually, if they have both gas lights and a gas stove, that is. Thinking about it, Sosaki-san doesn't have a fireplace in that room of his, does he? Some people still choose to use candles, of course, and only have gas for heating. I do remember seeing candles in Mr. Natsume's rooms, actually. And how does the money in the meter get back to you at the gas company? Every 3 days, gasmen like me visit properties on the gas supply and empty the meter of coins. I must say, the design and manufacture of the new meter cost the company an awful lot of money. But happily, did it put a stop to people not paying their dues? For the most part. Because they have to pay in advance, you mean? Yes, exactly right. And yet, let's see, the meter, single coin in it. Out of interest, how long has this been going on? Weeks and weeks. He's been pinching gas off us for ages. And you've examined the meter of Mr. Shamstray's room, I take it? Naturally. We took it off the wall and went over it with a fine-toothed comb. And found nothing suspicious at all, I presume. No, I'm afraid we didn't. Which is exactly why I demand a new type of meter to be produced. One with an indestructible lock. The Shamsphere Special. That sounds like it would have cost an awful lot of 3-penny pieces. But even after all that, the rascal's meter was still empty. I'll never forget the humiliation. When I opened up the money box and found it bare. You what? I said. You what? And the look on his face, that smarmy smile of his. I pulled the meter straight off the wall and took it all back to the office. But you know what? None. Not a trace of being jammed open anywhere. Not a single sign. And what's happening to my salary as a result? Down by 3 shillings a day, that's what. A life-threatening situation in a number of ways. Incidentally, what became of that meter? None became of it. I still got it. Oh. Right here. No wonder they call you Meter Man. I think you'll be prudent for the court to question this item while the trial is ongoing. Definitely. Although, at first glance, there doesn't appear to be anything unusual about it. Let's move this along, shall we? Continue with the testimony. Though I would say it has as much value as the contents of that meter. Ugh. Oh, we got investigator, new goods. Oh god, page 2. That's a very sturdy looking padlock, isn't it? And the money box is sealed with beeswax too. So Mr. Sholmes would get up to any mischief. He'd be found out immediately. Mr. Naruhodo, mischief of that kind is not the sort of thing that Mr. Sholmes would... You know you didn't finish that sentence, don't you? Well, anyway, it's understandable that the gas company would want to safeguard the money that's rightfully theirs. But it does feel a little over the top, perhaps, doesn't it? Ah, there's a hole here. Remember there was a leak? There was like a little like puddle underneath the pile.
Wait a minute, if they inspected it, shouldn't they have seen this? Excuse me? Oh, what's... Have you spotted something, Mr. Naruhodo? It's just here. There's a little hole. Do you see? Goodness, you're right. I wouldn't have noticed. How? It's like... Alright. It's not a very neat hole, is it? Not professionally made, I'd say. So, you think it might have been opened up at Mr. Shamsphere? Possibly. It seems the people at Altamont Gas must have missed it. Well, it surely seems to go all the way through to the inside. Yes, but there's no way a coin could fit through there. That's true, but even so, it seems a little more than a little suspicious. Alright, let's pretend that's everything. See, look at that. Like, how no one noticed this shit? Like, professional lawyer.
Hold it!
There's only one key for all of your meters? Well, in truth, there's another key in the company vault at our main office. But even if someone had somehow managed to get a hold of the key, we know the coin box had been opened. Oh? How? I came up with a rather clever way to expose any little shenanigans as it happens. Would you care to explain? Well now, in order to empty a meter, you have to unlock the padlock and remove the cover. When I close the cover again, I stick a little beeswax seal on it, you see. A seal? Like the sort of thing you put on an envelope, you mean? Something like that, yeah? Basically, you can't remove the cover again without breaking the seal. Now, in the case of Mr. Shamsphere meter, there were no coins inside at all, as I said. But the seal hadn't been broken either. So that would mean Mr. Shamsphere somehow managed to steal coins from inside the meter without opening it? It would seem so, but that would be impossible.
Hold it!
How do you know that he's been using gas, though? Well now, since I started investigating this bloke, I've been to his room more than a few times, and on every single occasion, his lamps have been blazing and his stove pounding. It's in the middle of winter, and he still turns to me, sweat dripping down his cheeks, and says, "Get thee to a nunnery." Hamlet indeed. Ah, I could wring the bloke's neck. I get all hot under the collar, but still, every time I open up that flaming meter, it's empty. He's robbing me of my salary, too. What's wrong with the world? Where's the justice? But how can Mr. Shamsphere possibly be stealing the money? I don't understand. A simple explanation is right before your eyes. What? A toast to you eventually realizing that the gasman could be an accomplice. You what? Good lord. Eminently plausible indeed. Well, what do you have to say for yourself? Oh please, Lady Quimby, I'm a faithful worker, and besides, if the money us gasmen collect doesn't tally with how much gas has been used, you dock our pay by the same amount. So you'd be stealing money only to have the same amount taken from your wages. Clearly that makes no sense. Perhaps it's a case of losing the battle to win the war? No, I'm not gonna stir up that hornet's nest. If I went stealing from a company, I'd be finished. It would seem there's no evidence to support the claims of thievery made against the victim, because Mr. William Shamsphere is innocent. Pray, forgive me if that shatters some illusion my learned Nipponese friend was clearly under. Ugh. I certainly didn't expect to uncover another crime that looks like it had been taking place in the very same room. According to the testimony, it's only the meter in Mr. Shamsphere's room that's under suspicion. It does seem as though perhaps it has nothing to do with the incident involving Mr. Natsume. I know, it does seem that way. But the fact is, since I've been practicing law in England, I feel like I've encountered this at least once already. Cases that are interlinked. Oh. It might seem that the two cases have nothing to do with one another at first, but in fact, they're intimately connected.
Yes, we have experienced that before, haven't we? I wonder if this is another instance. Perhaps. But we can't be sure of that yet. If the Altamont Gas Company has been investigating Mr. Shamsphere so earnestly, there must be something to it. But then how has he been managing to steal their gas? I think it's this line. Hasn't been tampered with. And then like, it's clearly been tampered with. Oh, wrong button. R.
Objection!
Lady Altamont, I'm afraid to say that this meter clearly does show signs of being tampered with. What? Get away! I've been over and over that thing. I've been telling you, there's nothing wrong with it. In that case, what do you have to say about the small hole that's been made at the base of the coin box? Hole? What? You're right. You're quite right. There is a little hole there. The meters aren't supposed to have that. None of the others do. In other words, we can assume that Mr. Shamsphere secretly opened up this hole himself. Yes, I wouldn't be at all surprised. But why? Yeah, why? I mean, it's tiny. You couldn't get a farthing through that. Lady Altamont, I wonder if you could give the court some more details about your meter design. What sort of details? Well, what I'd specifically like to know is... I see. These are neither of the options that I expected, so... How can the meter be dismantled? Dismantled? Yes, given that there are no signs of it being forced. I'm wondering if perhaps, rather than being broken open, it might have been taken apart. Well, yes, that does make some sense. The padlocks are made by a first-class locksmith from the finest quality steel, and the meter box itself is made from plate steel as well, welded shut to ensure that it can't be opened again. I can assure you, it's quite impossible to dismantle it. Wahoo, yeah! Nothing leaks from Altamont, leader. No coins, no gas, no nothing. I see. Naruhodo. The witness will amend her former testimony with that information in case it is pertinent. As you wish, my lord.
Hold it!
Has anyone ever tried? Ah, yeah, they've tried, but they're all giving up before long. After all, if they actually broke the meter, the company would be able to take legal action. Yes, that makes sense. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Is welded steel construction significant? Or perhaps there's some other aspect of the meter's construction that we should be focusing on? Yes, you may be right. Perhaps I should try a different tack here. Like asking about how the meter differentiates coins, for example. Yeah, I'll just do it. We're doing that option now. How does the other meter differentiate between different coins? What do you mean? Well, for example, if someone had put in a 1 penny coin, that wouldn't work presumably, would it? No, of course not. So, well, how does the meter know that the coin's been fed as a 3 penny bit? Ah, I see what you're getting at now. The meter tells coins apart by the shape and size, which includes their thickness. A 3 penny bit is about 3/4 of an inch in diameter, you see. Other coins just won't fit. Ah, I see. It's clearly been very well thought out. The witness will amend her former testimony with that information in case it is pertinent. As you wish, my lord. Nothing else will fit.
Hold it!
But conversely then, it would seem that anything matching a 3-pence coin exactly in terms of diameter and thickness could equally well be used. Would, that be true? Well, yes, in a way. The weight comes into it to a certain extent as well. We thought of that though, anyway. If I find any fake coins inside the box when I empty the meter, The contract says the customer has to pay 100 times the amount they diddled as a fine. We live for moments like that, us gasmen do. Live for them, ha ha ha. It would seem the gas company has thought of everything. Wahoo! Hurrah for gas, hurrah for cash, Ultima all the way. It's quite enough of that. Remind me, how big are threepenny bits? About 3/4 of an inch across. I see. I see. I see. What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Is this 2 centimeters measurement significant? Or perhaps there's some other aspect of the meter's construction that we should be focusing on? Yes, you may be right. Press this line yet. How do you know that he's been using gas though? Oh, I think I have. Yeah. Oh god, that's a long press. Making sure I don't have to like, I do have to look at this. Oh, look at the bar of soap. There's a circular depression on the side, about 2 centimeters across. Or 3/4 of an inch. Ah, do you think we did find the soap at the scene, didn't we? Yes. Yes, there were 2 bars on the little ledge outside the window. So we took this one. But I'm sure that when we first found it, there was some sort of reddish medallion in the middle there. I remember it clearly. Yes, but there's no sign of it now. Where could it have gone? Null our pants? Because that would be awkward.
Objection!
Let me just confirm something here. If the diameter and the thickness were to be correct, the meter would accept any object as if it were a threepenny bit. Is that correct? Yes, that is correct. Well, by something of a coincidence, while we were investigating in Mr. Shamsphere's room, we found a particular item that matches the dimensions perfectly. Something about the same size of a threepenny bit? What was it? The item in question is this. Wow. Have you been inhaling gas? That's a bar of soap. It certainly looks nothing like a threepenny bit, I must say. It looks like I'm going to have to point out exactly what I mean here. Do I have to? I have to hit the R button, not the investigate button. It's this part of the soap. I know, Susato. I made a mistake. I didn't hit the R button.
Got it!
You have to turn over the soap to see what I mean. Ah! Are you referring to that round depression in the middle of the soap there? That's right. A depression that's approximately 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Or, in other words, almost exactly the same size as a threepenny bit. Get away! Does anyone here have in their possession a threepenny bit? Quickly now, hand over your coins, ladies and gentlemen. It sounds rather like a highway robbery, doesn't it? Thanks to a kind member of the public in the gallery, I have here a threepenny bit. Now, to see if it fits. My word, it couldn't be more snug. Yes, as I suspected. This, without a doubt, is a vital clue to explain how the Altamont Gas Company is being defrauded. Well, I don't believe it. So, your assertion amounts to what? That some inferior bar of soap has a tentative connection to the theft of gas? Yes. The depression in the soap was clearly made by a threepenny bit. I must concur, at least, that pushing a coin with some force into a poor quality bar of soap such as this is a remarkably simple way of replicating the coin's shape. And then you could use, well, some nut wax or something poured into the mold. You can make fake coins in no time. We're gonna spend like 20 hours explaining this. This brings all the pieces of the puzzle together. It's the method Mr. Shamsford has been using to steal the gas. That's the missing link. And now, if I follow the chain of thought, it's going to bring me to a new explanation for what happened that nobody's considered yet. But this is all nonsense. If the man had been making fake coins, my worker would have found him when he emptied the meter. Quite true, Lady Altamont. In the absence of some black magic that can make them disappear. I see. That's what we're dealing with, is it? There's one form of black magic that could cause the fake coins to disappear into thin air, yes. Exactly. And the meter here gives it away. What on earth? There are remnants of the magical method used visible on the gas meter taken from the victim's room. If that is your assertion, Counsel, the defense will identify these remnants for the court at once. Where on the meter can the remnants of the method used to make the fake coins disappear can be seen? Subjection stream still gets me going. Should I present? Should I click on it again? Read the text. There's this little hole in the bottom of the meter here, isn't there? And it looks as though it was made by somebody who didn't really have the right tools. It does actually go all the way through to the inside. It's hard to see that unless you look closely. In fact, it goes right into the part where the meter where the money ends up. I suppose it's nothing then. Oh? Well, you couldn't possibly extract a coin through such a small hole, could you? No, I suppose not. Then the question remains, why would someone go through the effort making a hole?
Got it!
We found this bar of soap at the scene of the crime, just outside the victim's window. Outside? Yes, outside, where you yourself, Mr. Meterman, were loitering in the freezing winter air. That's where we found this soap. Ah, I get it. That's right. The answer, of course, is ice. Oh. Did you say ice? Mr. Shamsphere has been leaving soaps like this outside his window each evening, filled with water. After a night outside in the bitter cold, the water is completely frozen solid the next morning. Then he takes his fake coins out of ice and feeds them into the gas meter, giving him light and warmth in spades. As his room becomes very comfortably warm, the ice now inside the meter's coin box melts, turning back into water and draining harmlessly away through the small hole made in the other side of the meter. That is how, without leaving any evidence of his wrongdoing, this man has been stealing Altamont gas. Just like that, so simply. Is he trying to make us look like idiots? He's been fooling us all with some bars of soap and some water? That's right, madam. I don't believe it. It can't be true. Do you have any idea how much money we spent to develop that new meter? Now you have the audacity to suggest that a bit of soap and some water can render it totally useless? I'm fairly sure I didn't design it. Evidence. Sorry? I want evidence. If you're going to stand there and tell me our meters are rubbish, I want to see proof. She's very good at enforcing accountability, isn't she?
Very well, Lady Altamont. If you like evidence, I'll provide it.
What? Mr. Naruhodo, are you saying you do actually have evidence to support this theory?
I did notice a trace of something that bothered me a little at the time. And I have a feeling that this theory we've come up with now could explain it. The piece of evidence that substantiates the theory about how Mr. Shamsphere has been stealing gas is...
Take that!
This is a photograph of the scene at the point when the victim was discovered, taken by Inspector Gregson. And it clearly shows the remnants of the crime carried out by Mr. Shamsphere. What remnants? Here you can see the gas meter on the wall in Mr. Shamsphere's room. Now, look closely at the floorboards directly underneath the meter. What is that? Some kind of grubby stain. Almost certainly, it's a water stain resulting from the liquid that drained out of the hole made in the meter. I guess he couldn't afford like a bottle or a jug or anything to capture the water. If one coin gives around 2 hours of gas usage, and the occupant was heating his room in all his waking hours, we can imagine that he would have used around 10 of his fake coins each day. The melting ice inside the meter's coin box would have been dripping out almost constantly, leaving a stain on the floor. This is awful. And there's further evidence too. Mr. Shamsphere is slumped over his table, apparently having consumed strychnine. And right there next to him is a bar of soap broken in half. You're right. It would appear to me then, Counsel, that the man was eating the soap, was he? Pardon me for disagreeing with your lordship, but... certainly not. He didn't beat around the bush there, did he? In truth, Mr. Shamsphere was found with a fork in his hand. A meal of soap is sounding increasingly likely. Do you mean to say he was using that fork too? Yes. To extract a frozen coin from the bar of soap. But the bar broke in half. So perhaps it didn't go very well. Good gracious. Lord Van Zeeks. I was throwing my hand up in despair and happened to catch my hollowed bottle on the way. Pray, forgive my maladroit mistake. What is the meaning of this, Counsel? Allow me to pose my learned friend a question. What exactly did you establish with your most recent cross-examination? Well... that Mr. William Shamsphere is a liar and a thief. In other words, that his testimony is unreliable. That's it. That's exactly it. Very well. Let's assume that the man is a liar. Now allow me to pose another question. What possible difference does that make? Well, we know that suicide can be discounted. Scotland Yard's investigation revealed no sign of another vessel that contained poison. And on the night in question, there were no visitors to the room except the accused. The young gasman's testimony, for which we have no reason to doubt, has confirmed that. Furthermore, the only possible way the poison could have entered the victim's body is via the tea. The court has seen no evidence whatsoever that suggests otherwise. Oh god. Even if William Shamsphere is the liar you claim him to be, these facts have been objectively established. There's no escaping it. Therefore, in light of these facts, the prosecution calls for immediate adjudication. You... What? Order! Order! Well, Counsel, how does the defense respond? Mr. Naruhodo.
What was the point of that last cross-examination? Did it really get us anywhere? Or did it make no difference at all, like Lord Van Zieks is saying? I mean, slam the button. No, this isn't over. The defense will not rest. What? But Consul, you successfully explained everything. You've identified and substantiated the unscrupulous method employed by Mr. Shamsphere to consume gas. What? What more is there to discuss? Lord Van Zieks just highlighted three facts in order to make his point. But contrary to what he would have the court believe, not all of them have been objectively established at all. What are you trying to say, my Nipponese friend? At least one of those so-called facts is an assumption made due to a lack of evidence. But the situation has changed now, following the cross-examination of the latest witnesses to take the stand. Don't be absurd. What is this nonsense? Yes, when you bring everything we learned so far together and consider it as a whole, it's clear. There's a question that we now need to reconsider, namely, this is my initial thought. So, to go over what I thought, I'm thinking the ice coin was poison, and like he drank it or some shit. Like he put in this tea or some shit. That's my initial thought. So I'll pretend that's where we're going. We've all been led to believe that the strychnine poison that afflicted Mr. Shamsphere was in the tea brought to him by Mr. Natsume. But that's only conjecture at best.
Objection!
The victim has testified that nothing else passed his lips that night. There is no other possibility. And since there's no trace of the tea left at the scene, it couldn't be tested for traces of the poison.
Objection!
As I have said, the situation has changed, because in fact, some of Mr. Natsume's tea was left at the scene, and in particular, a piece of evidence proves it.
Objection!
A ludicrous claim. Scotland Yard detectives investigate the scene exhaustively. What evidence are you suggesting they missed? The defense has made a bold claim indeed. Very well, counsel. Present your proof. What evidence from the scene of the crime can tell us about the nature of the defendant's tea?
Take that!
Good gracious. The soap again? The same bar that the victim used to fashion his coins of ice? Yes, that's right, my lord. It's just come back to me. So, remember the first time we saw the bar, wasn't the coin red? So was that the tea? Something to think about. Something about when we first found this bar of soap at the scene yesterday. It's more bars of soap. Soap? What are bars of soap doing lined up on a ledge outside the window? I'm quite certain that when we originally stumbled upon the bars of soap, there was actually a frozen coin in each bar. So you discovered the gas thieves' coin factory. Fascinating. In a way, yes, but there's more. The coins we found in the soap at the time weren't normal ice. There was something strange about them, you mean? Exactly. Something very obviously strange. They were red. The ice was red? No, you mean... That's right. It's obvious to me now. The fake coins in the soap were made from frozen tea. So this explains something else I thought. Because if you remember a long time ago, Natsume said the public water wasn't running. So this time I've been wondering, how did Shamsphere get the water to make the coins if the public water wasn't working? And this explains that. What? I would remind the court of a statement made by Mr. Natsume earlier in this trial. Oh, okay. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. Should've let Naruhodo say it for me. That evening, yes. I did take some, I took some brewing tea for me when I visited Mr. Chancellor's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it.
But he wasn't going to buy bottles of water because he's poor.
And this is the result. Never will I touch tea again. Never. Oh, yes. I believe there had been a snowfall that day. It was particularly cold. Sadly, on such occasions, the poorly constructed water mains in the East End are prone to freezing.
So on the night in question, Mr. Shansphere, having no running water to use, was forced to use the tea brought by Mr. Natsume in order to make his fake coins.
My word!
There were 2 bars of soap on the windowsill ledge when my judicial assistant and I investigated the scene. That's right, and we only borrowed one of them. Ah yes, borrowed, quotes in quotes, borrowed. Lifted evidence from the crime scene, which means that even as we speak, some of the defendant's tea is still present after the scene of the crime, frozen solid in a bar of soap outside Mr. Shamsphere's window.
Extraordinary.
Earlier today, Inspector Gregson informed the court that if even one drop of the tea remained, Scotland Yard would be able to analyze it for poison. As such, we are now in the position to prove or disprove what has now been mere conjecture. By finding out for sure whether or not Mr. Natsume's tea actually contained strychnine at all.
Oh, you smug Nipponese.
My lord, we cannot do the defendant the injustice of passing judgment now. The police should be dispatched to recover the remaining bar of soap from the scene at once, and the defense requests a thorough analysis of the frozen tea embedded in it to determine whether or not it contains any poison.
Bailiff, bailiff, instruct the police to attend the scene at once.
Yes, my lord. Understood.
It would seem we have no choice but to suspend these proceedings for the time being. I trust you have no objection, Lord Van Zeeks.
None, my lord.
Scotland Yard will recover the tea from the scene and carry out the requisite tests immediately. The trial will resume at the same hour tomorrow. The prosecution and defense may conduct further investigations as appropriate in the interim.
Yes, my lord. Well, we managed to scrape through there somehow.
Thank you, consuls. Court is adjourned until tomorrow.
To be continued. Cliffhanger. Will the tea contain poison? Where the hell are we going with this case? I don't know.